Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I did a long introduction last night about more profound things. I'm a little bit groggy for some reason. Feel like I need to take a nap already. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. Um, so Trump has caved on the tariffs, except China, where he's gone nuclear. And let's just watch a little bit of this thing here.
In the morning saying be cool, and then just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions. Because
These champions. They're getting a little bit yippy. So what happened was the bond market, which was supposed to be secure, was plunging. The stock market was plunging. Everything was falling apart economically. But all these people that Trump would normally listen to, Jamie Dimon of Chase Bank and the guy from BlackRock, the Fink and all these people like that, there was just pretty much across the board and Republicans and everyone was like, are you out of your effing mind, right? And Trump finally got the message that this was a disaster. Now, every Trumper, and they won't do it because they're incapable, every Trumper should realize, I got a little bit of a meme to show you. Then we'll get back into this on the other side of my introduction. I got two things to show you here, and then I'll do the introduction, and then we'll get back into this. But every Trumper should realize that they were completely bamboozled by this guy, by their own selves, not by this guy, by their desperation and their wrong thinking. Somebody telling them what they want to hear who clearly doesn't believe what he's saying and doesn't care about anybody else, right? Everyone should know that Trump does not give an F about anybody else or what his actions do to other people. Like, he doesn't care about how it affects, in this case, the global economy, and that he's just a complete moron. Like, he just doesn't know what the hell he's doing, right? He just doesn't know. Like, he's just clueless. Aside from whatever role he's playing, all the truthers that think that Trump is being handled and just a great actor, which of course he isn't. You've seen him. Like, he's not a good actor. Like, you saw what he did with he's not a good enough actor to pretend he's a dope and that he's just, like playing a role here. He's just that clueless. He's just that narcissistic. He's just that, for one, he's like, he's not researched. He's not thoughtful. So he doesn't know exactly anything that's going on, right? He's got a very limited grasp of the issues. Like, most of the stuff when he talks about it, you can tell he doesn't know what the F he's talking about. Like, he has no idea. He's absolutely clueless. He's very ignorant to he's just not, like, curious. He's not somebody who wants to find out, like, some deeper understanding of what's going on. Like, even in business, that's why he failed so much, because he's not thoughtful. But he's also not, some people are just good in terms of their intuition, right? Like, I have something that I'm going to show you here at the end of the voiceover, then we'll get back to the Trump stuff, to do with Hamas and Israel, that validates what I said. Now, on just my perception of the only logical explanation to me, without any evidence, I mean, other than what's going on in the world, what's going on in the Middle East with Israel and the Gaza Strip, I said that Hamas is more than likely an asset of Mossad and the Israeli government. And now there's this published article about from Haaretz, which is, I guess, a liberal sort of anti-war paper in Israel, Israeli paper, that says that one of Netanyahu's closest billionaire buddies gave money to Hamas. Why would he do that, right? Only if what I was saying was true. But I didn't have any real evidence other than the only thing that makes sense, and we'll get into that, I'll show you that a bit, right? But that's something where you don't have a lot of evidence, you don't really care about something, in terms of like I'm not, I don't care about any of these things because it's all heading in one direction, right? Which I get into my voiceover. But I can be right without doing deep research. But also there's some level of, abilities there. It's not being impulsive, it's not wishful thinking. It's just looking at things and using the meditative connection that you get to the divinity within you when you practice such things, using, intuition in that way. But Trump doesn't have that. His gut is almost always wrong. He doesn't have a heart. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't they asked him what his he talks about being a Christian, but they asked him what his favorite biblical verse is, and he couldn't say because he doesn't know anything of the Bible. And he doesn't know anything that's going on in the Middle East. He doesn't know anything that's going on with businesses. And so he's a complete moron, and everyone should know it now. Everyone in the rest of the world knows it. They just decided to I'll give everyone tariffs, and predictably that set the world economy afire. And, they supposedly had all these deals that they were going to get from these countries, and they didn't make one of them other than Israel, who's about to get another, blank check from Trump. So they got the better of that deal. The only person that caved on the Trumps is Netanyahu. And so after all that, we put angst that he put people through, all these American businesses that were going to go out, small businesses, all the negative effects, all the money being lost across the board, stock markets plunging, the whole world, economic world sent into chaos. He ends up caving on all these tariffs except for China. And he's going to lose that battle as well. Because the American people, there's, this word safe, this word safety. Like when you're selling something, my brother years and years ago, he said he did some marketing, and then he had his own landscaping company. And he would talk about doing these spring cleanups and charging a lot of money for them. And saying that, that you had to do these cleanups because if you lift branches or whatever on the yard, something might kick out, knock out a window. And he said he used to have this line where he used to go to him, it's now safe to mow. Safe to mow the grass, right? Like, people want safety, and Republicans particularly are the older people. And they want safety. And safety is a word that just, whenever you can work that in. And Trump knew about that because border security was his number one issue. That, he created this, he and other people, Tucker Carlson, created this, this idea that the immigration policies were out of control, and they were to some extent under Biden, but most of us weren't feeling it. It wasn't affecting us, right? And so, Trump exacerbated the fear. They're eating your pets, they're eating your dogs, these things that he said, based on a lot of bullshit, right? And he was able to scare people. The Republicans were. And, the other thing was food prices. People felt unsafe about their food prices. And so, getting people to feel unsafe about your opponent policies will win you elections. And Trump's team and Trump seem to know that. And so they're making people feel unsafe about what Biden had done. Most of it was exaggerated, like it always is. And this wasn't stuff that actually is affecting people. But these tariffs were going to make everybody feel unfucking safe, right? Which is a disaster for any politician or anybody trying to sell something. If your policies if your grift makes people feel unsafe, then you're completely fucked. Grifts are supposed to make people feel safe. But Trump liked the word tariffs, and this was how he bullied people into making deals. And he fucking, so let's get back to it here. People got the yips. That meant that they're unsafe, right? That meant your policies made them feel unsafe, you fuck. And so the tariffs, if you could frame the tariffs to make people feel safe about it, or you could have done the tariffs that were just a little bit of a bump, not the amount, like using bullshit numbers and fake algorithms to come up with, voodoo math to come up with this. Well, let's go back to it here.
Just a few hours later.
Be cool.
There was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president.
Yeah, because they're not fucking. They're handled better. I mean, I couldn't say they're not as brain dead because Joe Biden certainly, but they were handled better because it's a fucking stupid thing to do, right? And presidents are usually handled so much, and they just wouldn't even think of doing something this fucking stupid, right? And the fact that he destabilized everything, and it wasn't just the Democrats that were. I mean, the Democrats, if anything, were probably a little bit like, all right, we'll get our turn again. I mean, Democrats who are dead in the fucking water, who they have nothing. They've been anti-Trump. We're the alternative to Trump for so many years now. They're not running against Trump next time, and maybe not even a Trumper. We don't know what the Republicans are going to shit out for a candidate in 4 years, depending on how badly this goes with Trump, and I think it's going to go really badly, which is, it's just inevitable. But the Democrats were dead in the fucking water, right? And so there should be celebrating to whatever extent. Except they might be freaked out, legitimately freaked out. Like all the shit they said about Trump that they only maybe half believed. Like I said, he's not intellectually curious. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's not good in terms of his intuition. He's usually on the wrong side of things when he just, jumps in arbitrarily. And he's taken huge fucking swings. He's a loser that runs shit into the ground. He's a con man and a grifter, so there's nothing real or sincere about him. He has really poor character qualities. He has shitty yes men advisor around him, and he's taking huge swings at change. Like what he's trying to do is change. Like change is tough. Like I've talked about that. I get into this whole thing in this voiceover about change. Change in a different way, change for the better. And he's trying to change things. And changing things is almost impossible. People don't want to change and get freaked out by change, to feel unsafe about changing. Like I can speak specifically from my years working as a counselor and, going through getting my master's degree in counseling and studying the psychological model and working as a counselor and then doing the spiritual stuff, that people do not want to change. Like it's almost impossible, especially for the better. And they don't want tough change, right? You don't come in and say, have courage and it's going to be better. They don't want long game type stuff. We live in especially in America, where everything's immediate and impulsive, immediate gratification. The food prices are too high. Take them down, Trump. Bring the prices down. No, we're going to get worse before they're going to get better. You didn't campaign on that. You didn't say that to the fucking American people. You're smart enough not to say that, right? And so he's a complete idiot who takes big swings and then gets embarrassed and then comes out and says, hey, these guys are heroes. Have some courage. Don't get the yips.
Other presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right. And now
it's not right.
Reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And
just arbitrary numbers, just trying to make it sound like it went well. Like he should come in with a bunch of deals and say, look, I made a bunch of deals and I was using this as a bluff and I was playing chess, 3D chess, 5D chess, whatever it is. But he's got no deals. He has to pause this thing for 90 days, which means he's full of shit, right? And, it's really funny. And the Trumpers will not admit to it, right? We'll get into that in a bit.
Somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he
After he
said
told me I was out of my fucking mind.
he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last
Charles Schwab.
month.
Okay, where is he? Is he saying that?
And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I'm honored to have done it. And, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. It's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people.
They're proud people. Is that what you're saying? It's pride keeping them from doing a deal? Or the fact that they have complete leverage over you right now? And people are running to them because you fucked up by turning on your allies and calling them liars and cheaters and stealers. And, when you say people are cheating you and screwing you over, taking advantage of you, you say all these kinds of things, then they're less likely to agree with your version of reality. Like him coming, he has to come out and say how he's the best. And all the other former presidents, including himself, who, he signed, this North American trade deal with Canada and Mexico that he now is saying sucks, even though he still says that his part was great. But he's renegotiating all these deals, and he has to talk about how great he is and how bad the other guys were and how they all got screwed over so badly by these other countries and how these other countries are... None of those things are true. You're saying they're liars, cheaters, and stealers like America's fucking the patsy and, the fucking fall guy when we're the number one economy just devouring world's resources. And, fucking, they know you're a piece of shit, right? And everyone else but your stupid supporters know it, that you're a lying piece of shit. And you're a failure. And you just tried something big and you fucking failed. And you're claiming victory, right? Which we, of course, knew this was going to happen.
And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well. And they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out.
After you cave on it.
But they want to make a deal. And we have many other countries, as you know, many more than 75. And they all want to come, and they want to come here, or they'll go to Commerce, or they'll go to Treasury. We have our great senators here and congressmen. They'll call John, they'll do somebody, they'll go through somebody, but they're all...
The other thing is, America imports a shit ton of things. Like if you go to these places, these harbors, these harbors, these where these big giant connexes, the things that are the back of tractor trailers are just piled on top of these giant boats that are coming into these various ports in New York and Savannah and these places and stuff coming over the border from Canada and Mexico and massive amounts of things. And now you have to develop these, you have to hire lots of new people to put tariffs on all these things, right? Like you have to know what's in each of these trucks. Sometimes there's multiple things, and you have to know who to charge the tariff to. It's a tax you're doing like at the border. All these things being imported. So, it's not some easy thing to make happen, right? Like they're going to find ways to smuggle things in, right? That's going to be the logical whatever it is, and then upsell the things on the other side. With maybe a little bit like taking half the tariff off and taking half of his personal profit. You know what I'm saying? It's not like some easy thing to apply. It's a whole new thing.
Calling, how do we do this? They all want to make a deal.
They all want to make a deal. That's why I caved.
To do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it, and that's what I did with China because they did retaliate. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing. I think that our country is going to be at the end of a year or shorter, but I think we're going to have something that nobody would have dreamt possible.
So they'll make some deals, some superficial deals, artificial deals, like whatever it is. And Trump will claim victory because that's the fucking bullshit he does. But this is a fucking disaster. And he's a fucking imbecile. And the people who voted for him, are clueless, are so fucking clueless in their desperation. Because it's just who he is. Like, I knew about this when Trump was on The Apprentice. Like, he's a bumbling idiot. That's what made the show kind of funny. Like, I didn't understand how clueless he was back then to now. But I knew, like, everyone who watched the show should have known that. Like, he's just this arrogant, over the top. He's just like the bad leader, the bad king. Off with his head. Like, he just doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I had no idea back then, but you could tell when he's an idiot. But I had no idea that he knew nothing about what was going on in the show. But you could kind of tell that a little bit. Like, I knew a little bit that was the case. Like, he would do these arbitrary firings, and he'd make statements, but he was just reading the script, and he wasn't involved in the show was a competition show. He was like a judge on American Idol. But he was like a judge on American Idol who wasn't listening to anybody sing. And he was just reading whatever they said. Somebody else was watching it and telling him who to vote for and what to say. So he'd be sitting up there with earplugs in as the singer was singing. And then he would take the earplugs out and come and say, hey, and read some script about what what somebody else who knew about singing told him to say, right? Like, that's how bad it was. Like, and I knew it was kind of like that, but I didn't have any idea it was as bad as it was. And that's just some stupid reality TV show. He's not curious, right? He gave it away, the information, when he was talking about that reporter from whatever that frickin' magazine, The Atlantic, that his dopes leaked information to, when he said the guy got bored and went off the call. The guy went out of the chat room, went off a signal. And, like, he wasn't bored. No one else would be bored. This was the biggest story he was ever going to have, right? Like, it saved that, whatever difficulties that magazine's having or whatever it is, it saved it, right? And he wasn't bored, but Trump is bored. Like, he's saying, he got bored with those boring meetings that he did what I do. Like, he wasn't even in the meeting because he doesn't want to know. Trump is like, these big things are going on. He says, make it happen. And he, without, really knowing what the fuck he's talking about, and then he puts these people in a position to make something happen that he might reverse himself and change his mind the next day and then blame these guys that he ordered to do something. Why'd you do that? Well, you told us to do it. No, I didn't. And then he reverses himself because that's the kind of person he is. He's one of those people, right? Like, he orders things and then finds out it's stupid, and then he blames the people that did what he asked them to do. That's the worst kind of boss. You've had a kind of boss like that, right? Someone just, tells people, comes in strong about things, and then turns out to be an idiot, and then blames everyone else for doing the things that he told them to do, and fires people over it because, it couldn't be him because he's God, right? And so this is this guy right here.
Like Roger Penske, I don't want to get him in trouble with China, so I won't. But he would know that you have to.
You just ratted him out.
Someday you have to cut the bow, and you have to do what you have to do, right, Roger? And that's what I did, and
That's what I did. I'm
very happy to have done it.
I'm very happy to have done it. Okay, so he's an idiot. So my wife showed me the Step Brothers meme this morning, and I believe it's the scene directly after the boats and hose scene. I used one of my first memes I used to use a lot was boats and hose from Step Brothers.
There's two boats and hose.
So the two Step Brothers, Will Ferrell and whatever this guy's name is, I'm just kind of loopy today. The two Step Brothers, they created a band called Boats and Hose, which they were a rap band. And, it's a funny movie. And they destroyed their father and stepfather's boat. And I think this is a scene directly after it, but they had that thing where he would say boats and hose. It was somewhere. This might not be that scene, but they did something stupid, which they always do it. And as Trump destroys the economy, the Trump voter.
I gotta say, I could have called this one.
No.
Yeah.
Is it our fault?
It is not your fault.
Whose fault is it? Oh, fuck, I want to fucking know.
Let's cut this shit. It is directly your fault.
It is absolutely 150% your fault.
Anti-Trump Republican. And they're crying. But this is, this isn't actually happening. Like, even these dopes would be like the real Trump reporters are still obstinate and that Trump is, great.
Of course it's their fault.
Please don't cry like that.
Oh, this is they're getting divorced. These the parents are getting divorced or separating or something, I think. Gen Z Democrat.
Let's grow up.
I think I'm going to throw up. I think I'm going to throw
Don't
up.
throw up.
Fox News.
Come on.
Oh, this is ugly. Hey guys,
This is not right.
All right, dipshits, right here.
Stop it.
All right, dipshits. All right, so that's great. All right, let's go into my original introduction here, and then I'll cover this on the other side, starting with the Hamas thing, and then back into Trump. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I just completed my last video, and I got a bunch of comments that I kind of wish I put on the end of my last video, but I had already rendered it, so I'm going to do them here. A bunch of Trump supporters came back to my channel. Not a bunch, like 3 or 4. With what Trump has done so far, especially the tariffs, but all the stuff. Stuff is with Israel, stuff with Palestine, this stuff with his signal gate, right? All these things. Like just incompetence, boneheadedness, stubbornness, just deception and aversion of reality, averting reality, right? Remember when Trump screwed over his followers after January 6th, and the Cubies who had been believing that he was going to take down the deep state. He failed on COVID. He got worked all over on COVID and the election. He was totally a patsy for the COVID thing, and he walked right into it. And then he put out Operation Warp Speed, and that should have been it for all of us. Anybody who claims to be a truther should have been done with Trump then, because you don't have to vote. Like it just becomes, all right, then there is nobody, right? I knew all along that Trump wasn't that guy. He wasn't that, he wasn't the savior that these people thought he was, but he was kind of funny and entertaining. Trump's best quality his first term was that he didn't act presidential, and it drove the mainstream media crazy, and that was great. But then he started to get, punked by them during the COVID thing and the election, the post-election, and the Cubies realized he wasn't going to release all these sealed indictments, and he wasn't going to do all these renderings that they thought he was going to do and bring people to Guantanamo Bay and Tom Hanks and people like that, right? All this shit that they had made up in their own minds. Then he said he didn't even know who they were, and then he flat out stabbed him in the back. And the Cubies were running for the hills. Remember, they talked a lot of shit before then. They were running their mouths, and they were difficult to deal with. And then they all scurried away and hid. And then they made they somehow got over all that and then came back around for Trump this term. And, the Trumpers will never surprise me in their inability for any sort of, the diehard Trumpers. I'm not talking people who voted for Trump because they felt like they had to vote for somebody, or they were freaked out by what's happened with Biden, or, they had an issue, singular issue that Trump promised them, but they didn't really love Trump. They just thought this was their only option. And so those people are different than people who are hardcore Trumpers, right? And their inability to self-perceive and deal with reality and be honest about Trump is, the cult thing, right? And so, the cult of Trump. But at this point, they should kind of see the writing on the wall that he's not who he said he was, that he's completely fucking them. He's fucking the country over, and it's just what he's doing. It's what Trump does. And so, with that in mind, let's get to some of these comments. Like, they should not be here or anywhere commenting, right? I'm just going to go in reverse order because the last one's a spiritual comment. Paul is an angry liberal. So, they have to put you in categories. So, when you say shit like that, all my viewers know that I'm not any of these things. There's no label that, that I don't fit in any of these boxes, because those boxes are created by the powers that be. I have some views that align with liberal people. I have some views that align with conservative people. I have some views that align with moderate people. but I don't vote and I don't give a shit about it. And I don't, I believe the system has to come down and it will come down. And it's God's will to take this demonic system down. And there's nothing we could do about it. So all this other stuff is just a show, and I have little investment in it. I mean, when it goes down, it goes down. We'll all have to deal with it. We're all going to have to make changes. I mean, this is coming around now. But this person is doing the same thing that Trump does, just making something up about somebody because they make good points that you can't argue with. And there's a reality that they're presenting you, so they just slander you or make some bullshit thing up to dismiss what you're saying, right? Well, Paul's just an angry liberal. All right, just go back to there's plenty of content out there for dumbasses, right? There's plenty of content out there for low consciousness people. Go find somewhere else to go. Like, that's the point that I say over and over again. This is specifically for people. There's plenty of Trumper content. There's plenty of pro-Trump people out there, plenty of pro-Trump truthers. Go find one of them, right? Like, go back to the minor leagues. I don't, it's not, you belong there. It's fine. It's cool. You know how insane and schizo you sound when you say Trump assassination attempt was fake. We are entering into the fuck America phase. That was the title of my video. You know how insane and schizo you sound. So you're saying I'm schizophrenic? Schizo, I think, was, your inability to, maybe you're saying schizophrenic because it wouldn't, or that I have multiple personalities. You know how insane and schizo you sound when you say the Trump assassination was fake. Like, there's nothing really I just have to say this because, saying that I'm schizophrenic, that's the diagnosis, that you would think that something that looked faked as fuck. And if Joe Biden did it, you guys would all be saying it was fake. The only reason you're saying it's real because it was Trump. If it was any other politician, especially a Democrat, you would have said it's fake. No other person would have pulled out such a cheesy. If a Biden did it, it wouldn't be. Trump went for the big kahuna, which is to get up with blood on his ear, that he'd been shot in the ear, which he wasn't, because there's no real blood. It was ketchup or fucking whatever it was, fake blood. And it was dry by the time he stood up. It wasn't running down his ear. There was no visible cut on his ear. He needed no stitches. And he said it bled profusely. He lied about blood being on his hand. Everything about it was fake. The Secret Service looked like actors. It looked like a total WWE thing. And Trump went for the big kahuna where he could get up with blood dripping down, like allegedly, dry blood on his ear, and pump his fist and mouth the words, fight, 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 and to the roar of the crowd. And then basically ignore it since then. Not even talk about it because it's so fake, right? Like, he just got shot in the ear. That would be traumatic. Like, a bullet just missed his head by that much. He's a pussy. Like, he's not a tough guy. Like, he's very, I don't think he's probably been in any fights or any kind of, again, I don't say that being violent or any of these things is, a test of your manhood. What I mean by a pussy is that he acts tough and he's not. Like, he acts like he's a big tough guy and he's not, right? And so, it's fine not to be violent. It's fine, it's a good thing to be soft or whatever, to have a soft heart. It's contrary to what we've been indoctrinated with. But Trump is a tough guy when it comes to sending other people to do the fighting, right? But he's not a physical tough guy. Like, he's very worried about bodily harm. And so, the whole thing was just a total Trump thing, the way they piled on top of him. They piled on top of him, the fake Secret Service guys. The whole thing was embarrassing. But the bigger point is, if you'd seen Joe Biden do something similar, it would be, oh, yeah, that was fake. I don't believe that's real. But when Trump does it, so I'm a schizo. So that shows you, like, this is everything we've come to expect from Trumpers. And this person writes here, this person left 4 comments. I'm going to read 2 of them. Same video. You talk about this guy's business going under with contracts. So what exactly was his payroll? Amazon drivers? This crap wasn't made here. Hell, most of the crap was packaged overseas. Okay, so there was a story that I can't verify is true. Somebody posted it on Twitter. And the story was that there was a guy, this guy reached out to one of his friends who was on Twitter. Someone had a popular Twitter account, said, that he was locked into a contract with China that he couldn't manufacture his stuff in America. And he was also locked in to Walmart and other box stores, probably Costco or something, with contracts where he couldn't charge over a certain amount, so he couldn't pass the tariffs on to his customers. And so he was going to hemorrhage $1 million a week or something like that. And this person is saying, well, what was his payroll that he was going to hemorrhage $1 million a week? What exactly was his payroll? Amazon drivers, this crap wasn't made here. Most of the crap was packaged overseas. And it's very easy to figure out this dope. Before posting this comment, you could have thought your way through this, but you didn't. This person. Because if the tariffs, he said the tariffs, he doesn't have $1 million worth of profit. And so that's all you have to need to know. His costs, whatever it is that he's going to be paying in tariffs is going to be more than his profit. So he's going to operate as a loss. Whatever his costs are, his materials and all these things, whatever margins he has in terms of his sales margins, that on top of that, because of the tariffs and the way the tariffs are working against this particular person, and again, he would have to, you could see him crunch the numbers for you if this is actually a real person. But the reality of it is that this could happen and is happening to small businesses where they're going to be hurt dramatically. I mean, they're going to be losing money because of Trump's ridiculous policies. And so, don't pretend that that's not going to happen. It totally is going to happen because people will have contracts with some, if they're going to manufacture something somewhere and the thing is a very specific thing they're manufacturing, then they have to build a plant in China to do the manufacturing, right? They have to specify whatever he wants, right? It's different if they have like sewing machines or something. It's going to cost money to get the factory, the place he's going to put these things together to make his specific item. And so they don't want him going back and manufacturing in the U.S., so he's got to sign a contract. That makes sense. And of course, Walmart and Costco sign very abusive contracts to their vendors, which are skewed towards Costco and Walmart. And so it's completely available. And so this is the other thing, 301, 3103 in the same video. This guy is full of shit. We print money, 36 trillion, and hand it out to the world and these other countries, 36 trillion in debt. No, this is final bit U.S. in the ass the last 4 years with inflation. I don't even know what he was responding to here. So everyone has to determine whether our lifestyle is sustainable. And the first clue, which I've said over and over again, is the people. People are getting worse. And that should be undeniable. That each generation gets weaker, more entitled, and worse on every level. And so if that's the case, then our society should fail. It shouldn't be saved, right? Just that alone. If it's making people worse and not better, then it should stop. Like it needs to stop. And divinity would want it to stop, right? But then there would be all the other indicators about the way our debt-based economic system works and things. And if people don't know about the usury system, which this person really doesn't know about, the debt-based system, what happens to usury system is what's happening to the world economy now. In fact, it usually doesn't last this long. They've just been fudging the numbers so long to keep it going. But at some point, the economy collapses. And then there's the overpopulation, just all the things. I mean, there's so many indicators of why our empire should fail, right? And so Trump isn't going to fix that, neither is anybody else. You're living a delusion, and that's not my problem. Again, there's plenty of content for dumbass Trump people out there who still believe in Trump, right? I suggest you watch that kind of content because it agrees with your worldview, which is what you're all about, right? Is your worldview. And so you can come back when that's done with, right? When you realize Trump's a piece of shit. And then maybe you can evolve into something better. I don't know. I've watched this show, The Leftover, a few times. Apparently HBO Max is taking it off the platform. I think it's a great show. There's so many ways people can interpret things. Things get crazier as you watch it. It's very interesting. I find it interesting. I don't love it. It's not like a feel-good watch. But it is interesting. There's a little bit too much drama in it. But one thing I liked about it, there was early on in the first part of the first season. I'm on season 2. There's a character that just starts killing these dogs because all these, dogs that used to have owners go out and form packs. And I covered this in my book, The Choice, and I used to talk about this a lot. And I love dogs. Of course, we have dogs, and dogs are wonderful animals. But there's these wild packs of dogs, and dogs, they're the worst. They ravage farms and they just randomly kill shit, without eating. They'll kill all the livestock. They get like a blood frenzy. Weasels do that. Like weasels will go into your chicken house and kill all the chickens and then drink their blood and then leave, and you'll have all these corpses of headless chickens in there instead of just taking one, like raccoons and foxes and coyotes and other animals just take one chicken, and oftentimes it's an old chicken. They're like doing you a favor. Hawks and birds of prey, but these weasels will take all of them. And these packs of wild dogs are vicious. And there's something like 70 million pet dogs in America. And in a post-apocalyptic situation, the dogs are more than likely, people might even eat their dogs. Who knows? They're eating the dogs, which I showed you in my last video with Trump. But, the dogs, when they go out and they form these packs, and they're just vicious. And it's covered in this show, which was kind of good because I had forgotten about it. But it's something to consider. Imagine 70 million dogs out there. Let's just say, 10 million of those dogs form into packs, and then from there they, develop their own population. Those wild dogs, if you've ever seen these wild dogs in India and Africa, there's this pack of wild dogs in India somewhere, I believe. And they killed a tiger. The tiger killed 15 dogs, but the dogs eventually killed the tiger. And it was, they get these packs of 40 dogs, and they're just brutal, right? They're not even deterred by guns and shit because there's so many of them. And depending if you're, an individual person walking outside with a gun, you're fucked because there's too many of them, right? So, there's that. Just beware of the wild dogs. And so, this one here, Paul, could you do a new series of 3 sitting videos for someone new, but they do not want to watch the video, but are okay with someone there to do the sitting with them that could play the video and give them a sitting in person that way? Does that make sense? Thanks. Well, that's not, if you're saying that you would play the video and you would give the person a sitting, that can't be done. The work that was done, this is, I was made into a preceptor, and there was preceptor work done on my system. Now, transmission can flow through people, anybody to other people. But to give specific sittings, there has to be the spiritual work that was done. And then, I was unmade, or I had the permission to be a preceptor taken away or whatever it was. And so it was only because I had that dream and, whatever happened. But I didn't know whether it was going to work or not. And, and I don't even know why the videos work. People say they work, but I can't vouch for them. They work for me. But the bigger question is, why won't the person sit in front of the video? You don't have to sit right in front of it. I put it on my phone, and I put my phone down when I do the sittings. You're just, if the person doesn't want to do the way it's done, then, we don't fucking cater to people that can't just do the bare basic minimum. There's no logical reason for a person not sitting in front of the video, right? The Sajmark system, the whole thing is, it seems imaginary. If you don't feel the transmission and it doesn't have an effect on you, then the whole thing seems goofy. This idea that somebody is, divine energies being transmitted to a person is some, spiritual master. It sounds goofy. And, it's a hard sell to people. It sounds weird to them. And that you would sit in front of somebody and they would clean you etheric level. We were watching, my wife and I were watching White Lotus. And they had, etheric healing, pranic healing. And if you can feel the energy, then it is something. You're like, oh, well, that actually is something. But it's hard to believe in because it's so, it's so out there. Any kind of, Reiki or any kind of these energetic things. And that, people do these massages without touching you and things. And if you can feel it, yeah, that's great. But if you don't, it's like, well, that didn't work, right? And so the Sajmark system, if people don't believe in it or have some faith in it, or at least are open to the possibility of it working, then it's not going to work for them. And if they're going to want special treatment coming in, this is what's available. There's videos in the Gratefulness meditation, and I'm not going to cater or pander to people who are probably going to quit anyway. Like, this is what you have to be able to do. If you can't sit, down in front of a video, I mean, what the fuck? What? That's just weird, right? Like, they don't, you can't make people do it. Like, this is with my family or anybody else. It's not just whether they feel the transmission or not. It's whether, they're interested in it. And, they have to be won over by it. And there has to be some motivation to do the system in the first place. And the majority of people, like I've talked about Sajmarg and this meditation, and people who, like me and think I have something to offer, some people who even feel the energy that I'm talking about in the videos, they don't choose to do it because there's no, you're selling, there's no demand for it. You're trying to sell something to somebody who doesn't want it. They don't have a demand for it, right? Like, there has to be some sort of desperation in people for them to want something. Like, there has to be some need for them to change, some craving inside of them, something missing, that they're looking for something that's not available in the current material system, an American system, or wherever it might be, wherever they live. They're missing something in their lives, or they're desperate, they need something. And so, like, there has to be some motivation for them to meditate, because people really don't want to meditate. Like, and it's not always that it's a difficult practice. Doesn't necessarily make your life better. It helps you maybe sleep. It helps you deal with stress. I mean, there's tangible benefits, but it also makes your life in some ways harder. And, you're doing something for your spiritual life, and most people don't give a shit about their soul or their spiritual purpose. Most people are just worn out and can barely get through a day, and they can't get through their day and think of doing anything better or bigger. And so, if they don't have it in them, they're not going to do it, right? Like, it's just, we don't pander to people because you don't water down the system or change it for people. The system works the way it is. The Gratefulness meditation, I've put my time and energy into creating these videos, and the videos themselves aren't where the transmission comes from, but it's, it's a connecting point on a material level to something spiritual. Like, the transmission isn't in the video, but it's how you do it. And, like, you just have to turn on you have to turn on the video. And again, I put my phone upside down. My phone's facing down, and I do the sitting. And then, when it says that's all, I'm done. That's how it works. And if people can't do that much, then how the fuck are they going to go through the cleaning and the shit that's necessary to be successful in the system, right? And people have to just, do it the way it's prescribed, because, that's what it is. Like it's anything else, right? I mean, it's a free service that's on the internet, and you can do it in the comfort of your home. Like, and the person, they want to have somebody else watch the video for them. Like, I mean, it's not even like it's just unnecessary. Again, that if they really want to do it, they'll find a way to do it, right? They'll get over their issues, whatever they may be. Okay, so there's one final comment here. I'm not going to read it because the person quoted something about a billionaire that, I'll read that here. We'll get into it here. Hopefully I'll remember to do this first tomorrow. But I'll cover it at some point in this video because I have the actual article from Haaretz. It confirms everything I was saying about Hamas being an Israeli asset, right? And again, I don't have any evidence. Like, this is the first time I've had any evidence to this, other than what we see and what makes logical sense. But I don't have any evidence that Hamas is an Israeli asset, right? But there's an article that basically says the same thing, and I'll get to it sometime in this video. Hopefully I'll get to it first thing tomorrow. Okay, so I want to say one more thing about this person's question about watching the video for somebody and giving them a sitting. The watching the video, that would be the idea that somebody would watch a video and be able to pass the sitting on to the other person. The sitting isn't even in the video, so I mean, the whole thing is like goofy in the sense that, it works on another plane of existence. It's invisible. And if I didn't experience it, I wouldn't believe it. Like, I wouldn't be doing this. I just happen to experience it because it's, like I said, it sounds goofy. So there's very specific work that is done to create a precept or open up spiritual points. And the most important thing is it opens up a back door to where the transmission can flow through you and doesn't deplete your own prana, right? The transmission's called Pranhuiti. Prana is this creative energy, and it comes from the source. And if you're a preceptor or the master of the system, you're able to transmit without depleting your own source of love energy, your own source of divine energy that exists in each person, right? There were people who could do this work before transmitting, but they could only transmit like once or twice in their life. And towards the end of their life, and they had to sort of transmit some of their life energy, some of their life force. And so they couldn't just go out and do it over and over again. It was precious, and it had to be, it had to be sacred, and it could only be to one or two people. And like I said, and so the stuff that happens now in the Sajmark system, the greatness of the Sajmark system, and this thing called Raja Yoga, this transmitting this divine energy, is that there is a back door open where this energy can just flow into your system as the master and the preceptor, and then it actually, you get a little bit of a percentage of it. And so if you're doing sittings, you get 20% of the transmission is retained by the preceptor. So you get like a little bonus for doing the sitting, which is, kind of a great thing. And if that wasn't the case, you would be depleted. And so there are people who quit the organization and still want to be preceptors. And Sharji and these other the masters of the system said, yeah, they can do that, but when they do that, the back door is no longer open, and they'll just be transmitting their own prana. And so when I was faced with this dilemma, when I knew that Heartfulness was a cult, and I knew I was connecting directly from the source, and Heartfulness and Daji were actually making it worse for me. Like they were blocking the transmission for me. They were, my idea that they had to be the sort of the vectors of the transmission was hurting me in some way. And so then I had the problem, so I walked away from that. But I had told people about Heartfulness because I, still believed it was working, even when I had my doubts about what was going on with Daji, and there was a lot of red flags, until I realized that they were actually, he was, and the organization was actually making it worse, and the transmission was available, but not through them. And then I had a dilemma on how to help other people connect the same way, people who hadn't had experience of doing that, and people who would need an organization because they were new and just learning about it. I mean, that was the sort of issue that I had, because I had to tell everybody that I felt like the system's a bad system. The Heartfulness system is cult, and it because I had praised it before and talked about being a good thing, and now I was seeing that it wasn't, so I had to let everyone know, right? It had to be said that this thing was was not what it used to be. And so, I didn't know what to do about it, so I started the Gratefullness meditation channel where people could connect directly to the source. And then at some point I had this dream where Charji made me a preceptor again, and I didn't, it was just a dream. I didn't know it would work or not. And so, I covered this extensively in the Journey series. But one thing I didn't want to do was transmit my own prana in these sittings that I'm giving on, they're passing through me in the Gratefullness meditation. Because, I feel like I want to help people connect with this system, but I don't want to give up my life force for it, right? I worked real hard to gain whatever I've gained from the Sajmark system. And, it was a concern of mine. So, that's why people just need to follow the fucking rules and understand, this is beyond their petty little whatever. I mean, whatever reason this person can't watch their own video, like I don't, then they can't do the system. Like it's not for them. Just like anything else. Like you're asked, very little is asked of you. You sit there and you meditate in divine light in your heart. All you have to do is sit there and do that, while video's playing on your phone or whatever. Again, like I put my face down, I turn down the volume to almost nothing. And, it's just the idea that the phone is, that the video's passing through is just the idea of it. You're connecting with the meditation, and you don't need, a third person involved, right? You don't need extra devices and things. I mean, it's already kind of weird adding the first devices. It used to be face-to-face, and there used to be plenty of preceptors, and, that were quality preceptors, and, people were able to avail themselves of the opportunity. But if you can't do it or it doesn't work for you, then that's, There's nothing anybody can do. Like you're either going to get it or you're not, and you have to be willing. If you're not willing, then we're not going to. We don't have to pander to anybody and cater to them because they're just going to quit anyway. It's not for them, right? The fact that they won't watch the fucking video means it's not for them. Anyways, let's move on. I want to say one more thing about this whole meditation thing. About the Sajmark system, gratefulness meditation. When something is good, if a person is a good person, if they're a so-called catch, you don't have to sell. You don't have to hard sell. The better something is, the less you have to sell it, right? The more value something has, the less you have to. In fact, you want to sort of hide its value oftentimes. You want to undermine its value. You want to talk it down, right? And so, that's why the Democratic Party and the Republican Party each had to spend. The Republicans had to spend $1 billion. And the Democrats had to spend $2 billion on their shitty candidates, right? If they were good, if they were actual great people, you wouldn't have to sell them because they wouldn't be running for president, right? Somebody who's a great person doesn't have to validate themselves with such, superficial success and power and these things, right? So there are lots of good things that people don't avail themselves of and don't take advantage of. And they're just sitting there waiting. God is always just waiting there. God doesn't have to sell. There's no reason to sell God. Any kind of religion that goes door to door and brings in a hard sell and tries to convince people and strong arms people into trying, uses manipulation tactics, threats and bribes, threats of hell and bribes of heaven, all these kind of things. All these religions, all these cultish spiritual organizations, all these abusive people, they have to sell themselves because they're a piece of shit, right? Some guy who has to come on strong and win women over with, aggressive hard sell and pickup lines and flashy cars and money and, whatever. Abs, whatever people need to put on there to sell themselves because they suck, right? They, deep down, no one would really want to be with them. So they have to, sweeten the deal somehow with material incentives, right? They have to incentivize you to spend time with them, right? Some repulsive guy sitting there and all the women are like, oh, geez, look at that disgusting guy. Well, he's a billionaire. Oh, he's a billionaire. Whatever it is, right? So you have to incentivize it, right? You have to make it worth something. You take something that's shitty and sell it and put stuff with it, put a sweetener on it, right? There are times like in the professional sports league, some player who's on a shitty contract for the owners, he's being paid way more than he's worth. He's aging, maybe shitty cancer in the locker room, and the team just wants to get rid of him and get rid of the contract, so they have to put a sweetener. They have to attach a first-round draft pick or some young player that some other teams covet just to get rid of this piece of shit, right? And his bullshit contract. Sometimes they have to eat some of the money. They have to pay some of the money just to, sometimes they'll pay money just to make a guy go away, right? And so anything of value, you don't have to sell because it's valuable. It's worth something. It doesn't need to be bullshitted. You don't have to con people and convince them. If they don't get it, they don't see it, well, it's really their loss, right? And that's with a lot of the good things in this world, especially now with the internet and the way these kids are growing up, they don't even see what's great. They don't see what's valuable. They don't see what's good. People in general, right? They'll take fucking crack and they'll drink alcohol, which again, you do a hard sell in the beginning. They give it away for free. They get you drunk a couple of times, get you stoned a couple of times. The next thing you know, you're addicted, but that's a totally different thing, right? Like it's something that's poison. And then you have the hangover and the health effects and the psychological effects and inability, impairment in your functioning and all the things that go with it, right? But ultimately, like I said, you don't have to sell God because without love, without God's energy, you can't exist. Without soul energy, without divinity, you would cease to exist. And the Sajmark system gives free God energy, right? Prana is God's energy. It exists in everybody. This subtle, loving energy that's the basis of all things. And, it's nutrition. It's spiritual nutrition. And everybody craves it, but very few people can figure that out. Very few people are capable of figuring out what they need and what they really want. They go for superficial things, fame and fortune, and whatever it is, materialistic things that really don't make them happy. Some people it makes happy. Some people are happy. That's they're satisfied with their material existence, but deep down, there's a soul is craving for the divinity within them. Master Charji said, you can hang a pot of honey in the middle of a room off of a rope. And, ants who have almost, have a brain the size of a pin, it's like a tiny little brain. They'll walk up a wall, they'll walk across the ceiling, down the rope, and get the honey, and then back to their hole in the ground, right? And, or whatever, sugar or whatever they crave. But people can't find God or won't find what's good for them. They can't find a quality spouse. They can't find a career that suits them. They can't find a lifestyle. They just keep on choosing the wrong things. And so human beings are really hard to work with because they don't know what they want or what they need and what's good for them and what's bad for them. And they keep on, going back to the same old toxins and poisons over again. And so it's hard to work with them. Like, first of all, you need people to figure out that they need something more. And so, once that happens, you don't have to sell God, because once they can feel God's presence, once they can connect with the divinity within them, they realize that this is the big thing. This is what they've been missing their whole life. And other than that, unless there's some kind of a motivational shift, and as long as people are set in their ways and they're resisting change, because this is what this is all about, change, right? This is what everything's about. All this stuff with Trump, all this stuff in the world is about change. It's about people needing to change, and you can't sell people on changing. I've been in the change business for a number of years now. When I started working in treatment centers, and I guess, all my life in one capacity or another, the idea of changing myself and needing to change, and then, helping others with changing or whatever. And, you can't really do anything for anybody else, especially those people who don't want to change. And I've seen it over and over again. People, resist change more than anything else. And so they have to be motivated to change. They have to be motivated to give up some of their, their bullshit and their addictions that hurt them and redeem themselves in some way. So that's why the system has to come down, because as long as the system is the way it is, people are going to resist doing what's best for them and following their soul's path and their egos relinquishing some of the control, the hijack of their soul's purpose. And so that's why the system has to collapse. That's why there's a Trump. That's why there's all these bad people that are running the system into the ground, and the self-destructive people, because deep down their souls and divinity need for something different to happen, so humanity has a chance to embrace their higher nature. And whether we will do that or not remains to be seen. But we certainly won't do that as long as the system, this demonic system, is up and going and keeping us distracted and pulling us away from what we're supposed to be doing. And so that's why the system is collapsing. It's because it's a motivation for change. My brother used to say that bars are a good business, because when times are good, bars are good. But when times are horrible, bars are great, right? So people get drunk when they have a bad day, things are going bad in the world. First thing they do is go get drunk and get inebriated, disconnect from the pain and suffering that's going on inside them and around them. And so that's a flaw in the human being, not being able to face up to the pain and accept the mistakes and the issues that we've caused ourselves and collectively that we've caused the world, and take responsibility for our wayward system and our wayward ways, going against our divine nature, embracing our lower tendencies. And all that shit has to be faced up to. And, apocalypse is necessary for that to happen. And so, you want to look for the core reason that everything's blowing up the way it is. It's because people refuse to change. If everyone would change now, there would be no need for the system to be taken down, because people would change the system for the better. As soon as people change, the system would change with them. And then we'd have a divine system that's more, aligned with the divine essence, and it would be more fair and equitable and more of a utopia than what we have now. But as long as the system exists, people aren't going to change. And so the system has to go. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. One of my viewers sent this in a comment yesterday, so I fact-checked it to just, as best as you can, because fact-checking is not a real thing. I'm usually just fact checking something that's posted by, somebody that you have to believe what they're saying, right? It's just a media person rather than a random person on the internet. Israeli billionaire Shemi Fogel, who is considered to be close to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, helped coordinate cash transfers from the government of Qatar to Hamas in the Gaza Strip, which were carried out with Israel's approval. The policy strengthened Hamas and maintained the split between Gaza and the Palestinian Authority run by the West Bank, thereby undermining the possibility of a unified Palestinian entity, plus the two-state solution. Haaretz. So I found the article here. Haaretz expose. Billionaire Netanyahu confidant is expedited Qatar cash deliveries to Gaza at Hamas's request. Israeli billionaire and businessman Shimon Fogel, Fogel, Fangu, who is considered to be close to Prime, so it's there. Then you have to pay for the rest of it, right? But the first part is word for word what the person quoted on Twitter. And I was saying this. I have no evidence of my claim that Hamas is an Israeli asset, but there's no other reasonable explanation, right? Because Hamas, everything they do benefits Israel and hurts Palestine and the Palestinian people. October 7th, that thing resulted in 40,000 Palestinians dead and their country being decimated. And, this is what Israel wants. It wants to get rid of the Palestinian people. And anybody if you're in the truth community and you're not saying that, or anything, in the media or anywhere, then, you're a joke, because it's obvious that Israel has planned to expand into Palestinian territories, their expansionist policies, building settlements in somebody else's country, and stopping that country from being recognized as a entity, as a state, right, as a country. And those people have no rights, so they're living in Israel with basically no rights. And it's an open-air prison. And anybody who says anything differently is just fucking lying to you. As far as anybody knows, in terms of if you haven't gone there or you don't, just in terms of what you see, the story that's out there. But you can see that what Israel wants to do. And so Hamas continuously benefits Israel and hurts Palestine. The Palestinian people are dead and their country's destroyed and they're living in chaos. And, their lifestyle is fucked and they're fucked and they have no, army to back them up. And, Hamas does something and then runs behind the Palestinian people. Hamas holes. And so how is that good for Palestinian people? They say they hate Jews, they hate the Israelis, and yet everything they do benefits the Israelis. And then you see that there's money coming from, these guys facilitating money being sent to Hamas, and why isn't that guy in jail? Wasn't that guy being held responsible, that billionaire buddy of Netanyahu, because it's an Israeli asset, right? And I've been saying that for, whatever time I've seen this, because I've watched, this is just like ISIS was an American asset. When there is somebody out there, that is doing something, if you have military plans, you want to go invade some country, you want to control some weaker country, and you just can't go in there and bully them without provocation, then you do some false flag type of thing, and then you have some people that are there to do that, right? Al-Qaeda, it translated to the list because Al-Qaeda was a bunch of assets, American assets, that weren't even connected. And the CIA intelligence community would go and use those assets to do something to provoke the American government or some government or some other more powerful entity to go and put down the so-called terrorists, right? And so if when ISIS would do something, they show up in Libya, and then the American and the French and the UN can go in and destroy Libya, right? So, like, there's, the goal was to destroy Libya. And so the why is ISIS helping America and France and these other countries and the UN destroy Libya when Gaddafi was doing a good job for his people and they were happy with him? Why would they be helping the great Satan, right? So, all these entities, these so-called terrorist groups, they usually hurt the ones that hurt the people, which they always do, that cause military action and sanctions and any number of things. Then they're an asset, right? They're doing something that the bullying group, the abusive country, the abusive agency wants them to do, and that's totally the case with Hamas. And so, it's obvious what they are here, right? And so, I mean, why either that or they're the worst group of people. They hate Palestinian people. When they do everything that the Jews and Israel wants them to do, then there must be assets, right? Israel just bombed this shit and destroyed Palestine, and that's something they've been wanting to do forever. And now Trump's coming in and saying, let's turn this into some American-owned luxury resort, right? And it's all because of what Hamas did on October 7th. And so why do you think they hate Israel? Why would anybody think that? It's silly. And then you have this evidence. And I'm sure there's a lot more evidence out there, but I don't need the evidence because it just makes sense. Like, you can't say that Hamas is doing a good job because they're not, right? They're not helping the Palestinian people. So let's get back to Trump. Okay, so I was not going to cover tariffs today, but last night YouTube recommended 2 videos, and I'm like, well, of course, now something's happened, right? I was going to move on to other things. They've genetically modified some extinct wolf that's been extinct for like 10, 15 years. I mean, there's shit going on, right? Other stuff. And, I don't like getting caught up in one topic. And, the topic has mostly been about how Trump is a complete moron. And, it's just how much you need to cover that. But it's happening, and it's, he finds a way to make himself get attention. He loves attention. I mean, this is what's happened. He dominates the news cycle. And so, I didn't think it would happen this quickly. And, I just ate breakfast. Today is, what is it today? It's Thursday, April 10th. So this video will be out tomorrow. And this morning, after Trump has repealed these tariffs, but still going strong on China, the markets are down again. People have lost faith in the economy. He's fucked the economy. And, all these people went to Trump and were saying it, and they have all these alleged deals they're saying, but in reality, he did something incredibly stupid and impulsive and thoughtless and moronic, and then he had to back away from it. So it's an embarrassing loss. But Trump can't take the embarrassing loss. And the Democrats and the mainstream media are now gloating, right?
Donald Trump has just made a pretty significant post on Truth Social. I'm just going to read the whole thing. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully.
Her reaction's great.
In the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, that those countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States. Here's a key line. I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
The fact that he's tweeting this out on a social media platform that he owns, which I suggested he do a long time before the 2020 debacle, when he was getting censored, I'm like, you should make your own fucking social media area where your followers and the media can hear what you're having to say. You know, your own platform, which he did now, and it's boosted his income or his net worth by $2 billion. Crazy stuff, right? But he's posting this shit like it's kind of substantial. And he's just arbitrary, like just reacting to China and then, reacting to the economy. What happened was the bond market collapsed. And that's a real fucking, red flag. But there's so many red flags. And he's a moron. And so anybody thinking that Trump is playing 5D chess like these dopey Trump supporters say, that should have been over a long time ago, but certainly now. He does not know what the fuck he's doing. He's throwing shit up on the wall, and it's literally shit. Like it's, and it's not sticking, and so he doesn't know what he's doing. Like he's clueless. And there's a reason why he's in the office and they haven't taken him out, because he can only do one thing, and that's destroy shit. He doesn't build things. He doesn't make things better. He doesn't improve people's lives. He destroys things, right? He runs things into the ground because he's just not good at business. Like he's not good at it. He's not good at anything, right? He's good at one thing, and that's selling himself. He's great at grifting, which is, it's good for him, but nobody else. I mean, people in his immediate circle, people who make money on the grift, but it's not a good quality to have as a world leader in a world in crisis, right?
Do you see Ryan Noble's The Hand?
Look at his fucking profile picture. His big fat pumpkin face with a fucking American flag on it. Like he's not patriotic. He doesn't give a shit about America. He doesn't give a shit about you. I mean, he's just a total selfish piece of shit, right?
And of any pressure of folks on the Hill where you are in this announcement?
Listen, Chris, there's definitely a lot of angst up here on Capitol Hill about the form and fashion in which these tariffs have been delivered. But we have seen Republicans at least publicly tell us that they're willing to give the president some time to see this through. But privately behind the scenes, we know that they are getting phone calls from constituents that are really worried about their 401ks. They're getting calls from constituents who own small businesses who are worried about the impacts of these tariffs. The volume of this concern just seems to be increasing by the day. So that message, we are told, is being relayed to the White House with a degree of urgency. And there was some expectation that this entire process was, had the opportunity to shift on a dime at any moment, which is, it appears it has in this regard. So, while Donald Trump has said that he was going to see this through long term, anything can change at any given moment. And as we see the markets reacting, I talked to one senator today who said that with as simple.
Okay, so one of the things that Trump had said was these things are permanent, but people are calling. And the only thing that was going to negotiate would be the alleviating the trade deficit between our country and every other country that we have a trade deficit with. That would be the only thing he'd be willing to negotiate these tariffs down with. But that these tariffs were permanent. And now, like, they've paused already. Like, they're not even being implemented. The other thing, and I'm going to look this up. I got two videos. I want to show you this one, the next one. And after that, that's how it goes. And after that, I got a bunch more videos about this. But I want to look to see if anybody's talking about how they're going to enforce these tariffs, like I was saying. Like, enforcing the tariffs, it's going to take tens of thousands of employees. Like, you're going to have to, it's going to be extensive. There's going to be a lot of smuggling because, there just is. And so how are you going to enforce these tariffs when you have to have that in place before you put them out there? Like, if it's not a bluff, if you're going to immediately turn the tariffs around, then you got to make sure you have the ability to enforce these tariffs. Because it's a whole new ballgame when you're putting on these kind of tariffs to whatever enforcement, whatever import enforcement that you have on there, these docks and things. You're going to need a lot more people, and you're going to have to figure out how people are going to try to scam you and and ways that things are going to get smuggled through into America, tariff free. And so, we'll see, like, fucking what happens with this thing. But he's already backed down, and I don't think they could have actually enforced these things.
As a Truth Social post, Donald Trump could send the markets back into green territory, and that's exactly what we see happening here. That volatility, though.
So immediately when he did this, the markets went up. They spiked because the people are like, all right, moron, like, thank God you did fucking do the tariffs. So he should know that the stock market's going to go up and down based on these tariffs, and that, he's fucked. He fucked himself. But he'll just lie about, pretend that he was great and he's doing a great job, and just like he always does, and the people around him. I mean, I'll show you clips from the frickin' the fake Christian Barbie, fake truther, and she's they're just so fucking obnoxious, right?
Cuts both ways. And, we'll have to see how congressional Republicans feel about not having a very specific long-term strategy with an end game. That's what we continue to hear over and over from congressional Republicans. Mr. President, you have the ability and the right to see your economic vision forward, but you need to give us some guidance as to how you get to the end of this. How does this play?
He doesn't know. Like, they don't have a fucking plan. Like, we know this about Trump. He does shit without thinking it through, and he doesn't know the facts, doesn't know the effects of what he's doing. He's a complete idiot. Like, he just does stupid shit with this idea, I think it's going to work out in the end. Oh, we were so unlucky, right? The people in Gaza are so unlucky, like, just stupid shit. Like, he says luck quite a bit. He thinks a lot of this is just fucking luck, like he's gambling, like he's rolling fucking craps, like he's playing craps.
Land. And a lot of the angst, I think, from congressional Republicans comes from that idea that they just seem to be shooting from the hip, and there's not a long-term strategy as to how to bring this all in to one specific strategy that is a long-term economic benefit to the United States. Chris.
Ryan Nobles, thank you. And take a look at the Dow, at least starting to respond. All the way coming up already. I want to bring back in Neil Irwin, chief economic correspondent for Axios, NBC senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake, and NBC senior business correspondent Christine Romans. Talk about what we're seeing on the Dow and talk about this announcement by the president.
Well, that's a big move in the Dow. 6% in one move is a lot. We're back above 40,000. Remember, we were at 42,200 or so just a few days ago when this whole tariff tantrum started, when the president and the counterparties started firing back and forth each other.
All right, so tariff tantrum. All right, so that's the first piece. Then and a little bit later, there was this. Okay, so this was a little bit later.
His tariffs on the world for 90 days after injecting mass chaos and fear in the markets. That pause does not include the tariffs he's imposing on China. Trump hiked that tariff rate to 125%. So what made Trump blink or cave or change his mind, whatever verb you prefer? He said his decision, quote, came together early this morning and, quote, was written from the heart, whatever that means. It probably also had to do something with the bond market, he said, which is usually safe in times of uncertainty. It didn't appear that way this morning, of course. Here's Trump.
Oh, I was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
They were getting the yips, he said. CNN's Richard Quest is with us now. Richard, Trump claimed...
Richard Quest dresses up, usually like a woman, but sometimes it's something else every New Year's Eve. And it's kind of a dope. But somehow now is, everyone's better than Trump at this moment. Like, it's just, that's how bad it is. Like, they're more reality-based and more truth tellers. Like, they're telling more truth than Trump and the Trumpers. That's how bad the Trumpers are. The mainstream media has become relevant again, and they can tell the truth because Trump's fucking bullshit policies and his moronic stances and his, not just with the tariffs, but with everything, and his goofy fucking imbecilic cronies, right? His, these people that are his yes men that surround him, his acolytes, right?
Claims that China wants to make a deal. If you were a betting man, do you think China and the United States are going to come to an agreement? Do you think China's going to cave? Do you think the U.S. is going to cave?
I think China is going to watch to see whether or not you sort of do tit for tat, but the tit for tat gets lower and lower and lower until you end up somewhere in the middle. And that's why I think the 125 is an interesting number that Trump went for, from 104 to 125. Is that number just small enough that China can either live with it or just about beat it? Because at some point, one side or the other is going to telegraph that they are ready to meet. The only thing against what I've just said, to argue completely against myself, is that the Chinese statement overnight is that they are in this to the bitter end. And that's the worrying part, because China maybe just was written off the United States for the foreseeable future and is just going to go head to head, toe for toe. We're going to have to wait for a few more hours to see if they match the 125 from Donald Trump.
And Richard, Goldman Sachs says Trump's trade retreat has not changed their own recession forecast, even though the stock market went up today. Its best day in 16 years, still not back to where the stocks were when Trump announced so-called Liberation Day. Are the gains today, is it like pushing an old lady down the stairs and then wanting credit for helping her back up at the bottom there? How do you see it?
The stocks have already gone down this morning, first thing. So, like, there's this... Understand that Trump's unstable and that he's fucking the economy and that we're going to go into a recession, not just because of, like, he could totally reverse the tariffs and say my bad, but that just makes him look like, oh my God, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He already looks that way, right? Like, fucking
that's very
thank you.
That's very
I made Richard laugh. All right.
I was going to sort of say it's like the arsonist calling the fire brigade and then taking credit. Similar sort of idea. No, this is why Goldman is saying what it's actually said. Number one, you still have the auto tariffs. Number two, you still have the steel and aluminium tariffs. Number three, you have the Chinese tariffs at 125%, the largest bilateral trade relationship. And number four, you have a new global US tariff of 10%, which is 3 times the previous average of 2.5%. So yes, the worst.
So he's reduced it a little bit, right? But like more reasonable than he was saying, but still, you know, the whole thing is, I mean, he's just a fucking moron.
In terms of Japan, South Korea, the EU has been staved off. But there is so much tariff in the system at the moment that's just going to wash over the global trading system. We are so far from being out of this.
All right, Richard Quest, thanks so much. Before pausing the tariffs, President Trump posted this morning, quote, "Be cool. Everything is going to work out well," unquote. Moments after he made his big reversal, White House Press Secretary
The other thing is Trump has never been the long game guy. When has Trump ever talked about the long game? Trump is, you know, grifters don't think about the long game because the long game is always bad for the grifters. A grift is something short, you get in and get out, Ponzi scheme, get your money and you go hightail it out of there, right? You move on to somewhere else or some other patsies, some other pigeons. But, you know, not patsies, pigeons, but he's all of a sudden talking about the long game, and Americans didn't hire him for the long game. There's no Americans saying, let's fix this economy, and this isn't going to fix the economy. There's no long game. The long game is that we're fucked even worse than we were before, and over gradual periods of time where things just evaporate and deteriorate and all these things. And so for him to say, be cool, everything's going to work out well, the U.S. will be bigger and better than ever before, you know, the only people going to buy into that shit are now the hardcore Trumpers, which is at best 15 to 20% of the population. Because the rest of the people who are, you know, sort of Trumpsters, Trumpers because of Biden, these things, I mean, all the people, and then everyone else realize this guy's full of shit, like he's this fucking moron. And so the only people take him seriously are these dopey Trumpers.
And Levitt tried to take a victory lap.
Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here.
Okay, so I'll show you this whole thing, this arrogant prick. Look at him. I'll show you this whole little thing at the end of this as we go through it.
Joining us now, someone who knows the inner workings of the Trump White House well, former White House Communications Director, Alyssa Farah-Griffin. Alyssa, how did you...
She's on The View.
You take that? Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. When President Trump, in his own words, made it very clear that this didn't seem to be part of any strategy. He just saw that people were getting queasy.
Right. I mean, listen, this was clearly, and Donald Trump said as much on the South Lawn, that he was looking at the bond markets collapsing, and that was what forced his hand into this reversal. And this, from from an outsider's perspective, but who was once an insider there, I get the sense that a lot of the major decisions these past few days have been made in a very small circle, and a lot of the communication staff and the staff who are going on television talking about what's going on are often kind of behind the curve in the president's decision making, because we were repeatedly told this is not a negotiation. Then Donald Trump says it is a negotiation. And beyond that, I do believe the White House is hearing from foreign leaders, but more importantly, they're hearing from business leaders who, a lot of them, bet big on Donald Trump. They thought he was going to be good for the economy. They were expecting Trump term 1 all over again. And then they saw the markets in shambles. So I think his hand was forced here. And thank God you're hearing a big sigh of relief from Capitol Hill and from our allies around the world right now.
You say during your time at the White House,
Okay, so, we know why he caved. It's just he had to. It would have been bad. We're looking at almost like complete economic collapse in 3 months. He's an unbelievably stupid guy. The fact that he even put this thing out there, it would be really entertaining, but just to expedite the collapse of the system. And you should know by now that America's fucked, because the Democrats aren't going to come up with any kind of real solution. And so it's what I've been saying all along. We're fucked. We have to change. You have to adapt. You have to change your whole way of thinking about what life's about. Because the American dream has just, again, the American dream's bullshit. But now it's dead. It's completely dead for almost everybody. You have to be like an arms dealer, or drug dealer. You have to go to some, there'll be people they'll come out and become more wealthy. That movie, The 100 Homes, where that guy went from being a realtor to being a forecloser. 100 Homes, I think the name of the movie is. And, things like that. You have to be a real scumbag to profit off of the decline of the system. And, for everyone else, it's going to be, your lifestyle's out of stock. President Trump meets with racing champions after pausing most tariffs for 90 days. Wonderful headline. So that's why he said those champions behind us, they have courage because they, race cars. And they're not worried about the tariffs because they race cars. Look at him. NASCAR.
Is this your car? Yep, this is the car. Yep. Ryan from last year, he had 22, so pretty amazing job these guys. Pretty amazing. This is
You guys are just great. So then Trump's going to turn around here.
racing champions with tremendous courage and guts and grit. Hello, fellas. I didn't see you guys over there. That's a good-looking couple of teams, too. They have a lot of courage.
A lot of courage. They're good. They drive cars fast. They're not scared of tariffs and shit like that. Good-looking team over there, too. So this is hilarious. Watch, Trump's got a card here. He talks about courage quite a bit.
They have a lot of courage. And we'll see you
A lot of courage. So these are NASCAR guys. He's got this card here.
in a second. So we're joined by the 2023-2024 NASCAR champion, Ryan Blaney, and Joey Logano. That's really fantastic, fellas. That's great.
It's really fantastic. See, Republicans are into NASCAR. A lot of his key supporters. He knows, just like he knows, he doesn't know any biblical verse, right? He doesn't know anything about the Bible, but he claims to be a Christian. He knows nothing about NASCAR. It's very clear. We just think it's, they take a lot of courage.
How fast do you get that car going? Like as an example, on average, how fast will you?
About 190.
About 190, you can have it. I don't want to go, but 190, that's fantastic. And on
That's fantastic. I never heard of such thing. 109 miles an hour and 190 miles an hour. That's almost 200. almost the amount of tariffs I'm willing to go up to on China.
Right away, you'll go how much?
About 190, 200.
About 190 to 200. Well, it takes a special genetic, you know that, right? It's genes. Not only it's genes, really.
It's genes. I know nothing about it, but I'm just gonna. It's genes. You got to be. You have the right kind of genes to do NASCAR.
Most people couldn't do that. Very few people could do it. The 2023 and 2024 Indianapolis 500 winner, Joseph Newgarden. Hey, Joseph.
Where is he? Oh, he's over there. There he is. He's over there. That guy. Hey, Joseph.
And the 2025 champions of the 24 Hours of Daytona, Felipe Nasser, Nick Tandy, and Lawrence Ventura.
Where is those guys? All right, give him the fist. Do the fist pump. Fight, 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 fight. So, like, he knows nothing about this. He's completely clueless, right? And, like, you know, he's doing this on a day where fucking everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing with the tariffs, right? This is why I talk about him not being curious, right? He's going to go talk to the India guys, the Indy guys.
Down all the way, and the best drivers could. So there was just a difference. It was really, I never forgot that story. But these are...
Let's go back. Let's find out the story here.
Physical ability. People that do this, they don't realize what great athletes they are. It's just not the car. I had a friend, he was
It's not like they just sit in the car. They're also really fast.
He's a very successful guy, but he was a driver. And started off, he wanted to be a race car driver. He wanted to be like you. He wanted to be like just like Joey Logano. and he had it for business, but he didn't have it for he said, I just couldn't compete with the good drivers. He couldn't do it, no matter what he did. And he got lucky. He went into business. He made a lot of money. He was very successful. But he said, I couldn't press the accelerator down all the way, and the best drivers could. So there was just a difference. It was really, I never forgot that story.
Never forgot that story. That's you know, he knows nothing about this. He knows as much about this as he knows about tariffs and the economy. He knows nothing about anything. Like, he's just fucking bullshitter, right?
But these are great champions, and it's a great sport. And what you've done in Indianapolis also with the track and everything has been incredible. I mean, it's really incredible. People tell me it's been amazing. I'll have to get there. I'm going to have to get there maybe this year with you. But
okay, so the track, it's two different things, right? And I know nothing about it, but I know more than Trump, right? So Indianapolis 500 is a different kind of a car, which he's going to get into in a moment here. And the NASCAR is, you know, NASCAR. And whatever, you know, these different types of race cars. And he's conflating them because he knows nothing about it. He knows even less than I do, right?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. We did Daytona. We went around the track in the Beast, what's called the Beast, with the thick windows and the whole thing. And you're not supposed to hear anything, but I heard the fans. They were going crazy outside. So it was a great honor. So I just wanted to welcome them to the White House, a special place, very, very special place. And we love champions, and these are the greatest champions in the world. These are the greatest champions in racing, and it's an honor to have you all. And thank you very much, all of you. Thank you very much. I wouldn't ride in that thing if you paid me. How fast will that go?
240 plus.
240.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you guys over here are pussies. These guys are going a whole fucking 50 miles an hour faster than you. You NASCAR guys are pussies.
Two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500.
So he was talking to these guys, you know, the Daytona 500, the Indianapolis 500, two different things. NASCAR, whatever this is, Formula One, I don't even know. But to see the cars are different. And this has, you know, this is lower to the ground and it has better aerodynamic, you know, whatever, so it goes faster. But, you know, like, it's just people driving around in fucking circles. Like, I went to some kind of thing with my dad was a little kid. I hated it. Like some fucking, you know, there was drag racing, which is it's quicker and, you know, whatever it was. It was hot. We went by bus and couldn't leave. They didn't have any, like, water or anything. My dad just kept on getting me snow cones because I was dying of thirst. Like, I was almost fucking passing out from the heat. You know what? I'm just eating snow cones and getting thirstier because I got that thick syrup in it.
consecutively, right?
Yes, sir.
So what the hell are you doing? What do you eat?
A lot of milk. Drinking a lot of milk. Hopefully,
He drinks a lot of milk because that's his sponsor.
So,
It's good about NASCAR and Daytona is that they have their sponsors right on their fucking car and their jacket, right? Which what Trump and every politician should do. Everyone should follow that lead. Like, you know, news reporters, CNN, Anderson Cooper, they should all wear patches of like Pfizer or whatever. Like, I've talked about the Pfizer dildo going to their mouth, but like they should wear patches of all the different people that support their networks or support their political candidacy, right? So everyone knows who owns them. Like Trump should have an Israeli, he should wear a yarmulke like full time.
what is pure speed and endurance, right? Correct, sir. Speed and endurance.
Speed and endurance, like you're talking, like this is him talking about something he knows nothing about. The way he talks about everything, like he's like trying to talk about it, like you're not a fan. You don't know the guys are. You don't know what the difference between the cars is. You barely have any grasp of any knowledge of this at all. You know less than nothing about it, and you're out there talking about it. Like it's just like what Trump does. Let's get to when he answers questions here. Okay. I was going to move forward. I want to get to him answering questions, right? Like I wasn't going to cover this part at all. He says something hilariously stupid here.
Sir.
So what the hell are you doing? What do you eat?
A lot of milk. Drinking a lot of milk. Hopefully,
okay, I'm going to take some. And that one is pure speed and endurance, right?
Correct, sir.
Speed and endurance. Is that car a very different car than, let's say, this one? Very different?
Very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Made for...
You gotta last so many hours.
Right.
And we all share the car, so three drivers.
Totally different engine.
Different engine.
Everything.
Is this car different than that car? They look fucking different. What's the difference? Like these are completely different things in terms of, I mean, for me, it's just guys driving around circles, but they go for longer periods of time, right? And so,
everything. And you go, is it 24 hours?
Yeah.
That's a long time. And that car there's no let up, it's just constant, right?
You've heard of a fucking pit stop? A pit stop's kind of like we just did with the tariffs, right? You brought the tariffs in for a pit stop, and they've only been in fucking 5 days.
Congratulations. That's endurance. Endurance is a big factor in life and success, I can tell you. So you guys have it. Well, thank you.
You guys, thank you. You guys, like I'm kind of an expert now. I know that car's different than that car. A NASCAR is different from whatever fucking Formula One or whatever they call those other cars. They're different. Like fucking, I never knew that, right? NASCAR looks like a regular car that they just, souped up a little bit. But that doesn't look like any kind of car you see on the road. Is it different? I mean, I know you guys are going 50 miles faster than these fucking pussies over here.
Thank you very much. Would you like to ask Roger or any of these champions any questions while we're here? Yeah.
You started the morning saying be cool, and just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why?
So nothing to do with the NASCAR or the other guys. You guys, I mean, look, I got these champions here, and all you guys want to ask me about the fucking tariffs that I just put on pause. It's crazy.
You decided to put a 90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it.
I know those guys. I know those guys pretty well. It's like I know the difference between NASCAR and these other motherfuckers up here. Because, I could look at one car and say one car looks different than the other car and say, hey, those aren't the same. Like I watched Sesame Street when I was a little kid. One of these things isn't like the other. And so...
And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, if you look at it.
These motherfuckers want no part of it, right? They're all worried about their 41K and their fucking...
Only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history. And others also. But somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right. And now I've reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he said he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month. And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So
our country would be completely gone if I hadn't put tariffs in for 3 days and immediately reversed myself, but doubled down on China for a little bit just to save face until I have to cave on that and make up a bullshit story about that. So, you know, the country would have been gone. Like,
honored to have done it. And, you know, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal.
they do. They're deal makers.
Just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well. And
They're like these guys behind me. They're pretty proud. They're like the Proud Boys.
Know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal. And we have many other countries, as you know, many more than 75, and they all want to come. And they want to come here, or they'll go to Commerce, or they'll go to Treasury. We have our great senators here and congressmen. They'll call John. They'll do somebody. They'll go through somebody, but they're all calling. How do we do this? They all want to make a deal. Somebody.
I make a deal. I'm a deal maker. The Art of the Deal. I wrote a book called Art of the Deal, so I know how to make deals. It's an art form, and I know that art.
To do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it, and that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing.
We'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing. I just have a hunch. I haven't done any research about what kind of fucking things it's going to entail, but I think it's going to work out great.
I think that our country is going to be at the end of a year or shorter, but I think we're going to have something that nobody would have dreamt possible. A man like Roger Penske, I don't want to get him in trouble with China, so I won't, but he would know that someday you have to cut the bow, and you have to do what you have to do, right, Roger?
Did you say cut the bone? The fuck did you just say there? Cut the what?
Roger Penske, I don't want to get him in trouble with China, so I won't, but he would know that someday you have to cut the bow, and you have to do.
Cut the bow?
What you have to do, right, Roger? And that's what I did, and I'm very happy to have done it.
Okay.
The Prime Minister of Greece just told Breitbart's Matt Boyle that he thinks absolutely the European Union and the United States could work out a trade deal that's win-win and, quote, mutually beneficial to both sides. What do you think about the Prime Minister's comments, and do you think a deal could be struck with the European Union?
First of all, I know him. He's a good man. And
I know that guy.
Appreciate his comments. Yeah, a deal could be made with every one of them. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair.
This want fair deals. So these weren't permanent. So you lied. These weren't permanent. There's no fucking permanence to them. He's going to make deals, and the deals are going to be whatever they are. He's just going to claim that he saved everything, and it's going to be some way, his people and himself and the people that are his people are all going to benefit from it. Everyone else is going to get fucked in the so.
There will be fair deals for everybody, but they weren't fair to the United States.
Okay, so this moron. So I asked this question on YouTube, and there is no videos that came up. And here, how will Trump enforce tariffs? Nothing here. Go to the news. Just U.S. pauses tariffs, these things. But there's no headline that's talking about how he'll enforce them, which should have been. I mean, this is silly, right? Like, I asked a very specific question. How will Trump enforce tariffs? And there's nothing. So I asked the AI bot. And so, subtle bodies, figures covered. How will Trump enforce tariffs? Based on the information available, here's the administration could enforce tariffs. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, primary enforcement, CBP is the frontline agency responsible for enforcing tariffs. They access and collect duties on imported goods. Trump's going to get a lot of duties. Increase security of import. I'm a child. Increase security of imported documentation, including country of origin, valuation, heightened inspection of cargo to verify compliance with tariff regulations. CBP refers suspected violators to tariff laws, the Department of Justice, criminal prosecution, civil enforcement, false claims, focus on recovering monetary penalties for tariff evasion. Key areas of enforcement focus: country of origin, valuation, classification, potential for expanded measures. I mean, just, a lot of shit here, right? So then I said, how many new employees will be needed to enforce Trump's tariffs? Unfortunately, providing exact number of new employees requires to enforce potential Trump tariffs is difficult. So he doesn't have this in place. Like, this would take a whole agency, like you just can't say, all right, let's do tariffs and not have a way to enforce them, right? So these things have been a bluff the whole time. Like, if he does 2% hike, well, it's not such a big deal. But if you do 50% hikes and, and different types of tariffs now that have to be, calculated and part of this whole sweeping, imagine people who work for these agencies, the kind of fucking, havoc that he's creating by going back and forth. And this was never real, because you'd have to make these changes. If this was going to be permanent, you'd have to implement the changes to your enforcement department, right? If you're going to make a law, you're going to do something that's going to take immediate implementation. Like, you could say, all right, we're going to change the border security, and you would have this plan in place, and you put the plan in place when you make the announcement, and then you start implementing the plan. But tariffs is much bigger and a much more complicated issue, where you're trying to impose a fee, right? Like, it's like a toll booth. You got to put the toll booths in, and you have to put the staff in. You have to understand all the different aspects between now different countries. All the people have to learn, all the the people who are charging these things, right? And so, it's a mess. And he just arbitrarily made up these numbers and said we're doing this. And now he's said we're taking a 90-day, pause, during which times he's going to negotiate deals. And so, these agencies have to know what the fuck they're doing. Like, he's just a fucking chaos agent, right? And I'm surprised no one else asked this question. I mean, at least in terms of the search, you can't find it. Like, there's no video about this, no CNN thing, no MSNBC, no anything. Like, the implementation and enforcement, you can make a law, but, like, you better make sure you can enforce it, right? And so, U.S. Customs Border Protection, these are all people that would need more increased volume of inspectors. More tariffs mean more scrutiny of imports, leading to a need for CBD officers at ports of entry, a need for more CBD officers, increased paperwork and documentation, more tariffs complicate import procedures, requiring more personnel to handle the increased administrative burden. And it's going to take more time for these things to pass through customs, right? Specialized personnel experts in tariff classification, valuation, and country of origin determination would be needed to ensure accurate enforcement. Investigation, prosecuting, increased tariff evasion will lead to more investigators and prosecutors, requiring more DOJ attorneys and support staff. And it just goes on. Factors influencing the number of employees, scope and scale of tariffs, complexity of tariff regulations, technology and automation. To the extent which technology can automate tariff enforcement process will affect the number of human employees needed, funding and resources, general considerations, enforcing tariffs, all these different things, right? See, if you're a really good leader, which Trump, of course, isn't, and you're somebody who, you have to bring these people in, these agencies, and say, all right, what can we do? What can we effectively do, right? Because it's just a fucking bluff. It's just a grift. So he doesn't deal with shit like this. But what can we effectively enforce? Like, how can we do this? Because you don't want to just make fucking arbitrary laws that end up hurting honest people and American businesses and American consumers and then you're not able to collect the tariffs because they can get around it. All these things. Like, what can we, what can we do and not slow down? Like, imagine this shit coming through the borders that's like fucking produce. Things that are need to be kept cool, in cooler containers and things like that, right? Produce coming from Canada and coming from Mexico or whatever, abroad, things like that. And things get stuck in customs for an extra 2 or 3 days and goes bad. Time, these kind of things. The amount of loss that's involved in it now. This is going to bring up prices, to an already disastrous economy where the inflation is off the charts and people are freaked out about prices, right? And so, like, he just doesn't know shit. Like, he's just a bad leader. And the fact that the media didn't ask about this, because these tariffs are bullshit unless he has a way to enforce them. And according to, like, everything I looked at, he hasn't done anything to bolster the, these, to bring in new employees and do, some kind of it's going to change everything. They're probably going to involve AI, even robots. Who knows what they're going to do, right? Look at this smug, happy, two-faced motherfucker, right? This side of his face and this side of his face, he's Two-Face from Batman, right?
Trump backed down.
He's so happy.
That was the New York Times headline today when Trump backed down, as predicted exactly 24 hours ago on this program. I mean, I didn't say it was going to be today. I didn't know that. But I did say the only way this was going to end, the only way was with Donald Trump backing down in the next.
Look at some. He's already sent Trump 5 times in, 24 seconds. He's got the
next few days, I suggested last night, or in a few months.
You're just such an amazing predictor of things, Two-Face. This side of his face doesn't fucking move. Did he have a stroke or something? Look at this little squinty little motherfucking eye here, and this much bigger eye. Like he's like biracial or something. He's got, like.
The moron, as Elon Musk calls him, was nowhere to be seen in the media opportunities at the White House surrounding the great event of Donald Trump backing down today. Donald Trump's tariff advisor, Peter Navarro, was reportedly not in the room in the Oval Office when Donald Trump was composing his tweet that would revive the stock market today. But Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was. And it was the Treasury Secretary standing.
We'll get into this here. We don't have to listen.
Alone beside the White House press secretary in the White House driveway for the dramatic televised version of the announcement heard around the world today. In what turned out to be the biggest media day of the year at the Trump White House, Elon Musk was nowhere to be seen. Elon Musk was silent today about the biggest news that Donald Trump has made.
Look at how happy he's made Two-Face. I mean, he's just giddy. Like, this is as happy as he gets.
In his presidency, Donald Trump backing down from his trade war was even bigger news than Donald Trump starting his trade war. And Elon Musk was silent about what Donald Trump did today. Yesterday, Elon Musk was calling Donald Trump's chief tariff advisor, Peter Navarro, a moron and saying that he was, quote, dumber than a sack of bricks. And then, of course, apologizing for insulting bricks. Yesterday, Elon Musk was enlisting his little brother to attack Peter Navarro and Donald Trump.
This is news to me. Might be true. Probably is.
About the Trump tariffs directly, but today Elon Musk was silent. But Kimball Musk was not silent. Kimball Musk, as we have reported to you, is Elon Musk's younger brother, who is a wholly owned subsidiary of Elon Musk and a member of the Tesla board, which means he is unlikely to ever say a word publicly that his older brother and boss does not approve of. And I mean word for word. At 9:47 a.m., a little more than 3 hours before Donald Trump announced that he was backing down, Kimball Musk attacked directly by name J.D. Vance and Donald Trump on Twitter. Kimball Musk identified a tweet by J.D. Vance saying, "It's bizarre to see all the limousine socialists screech desperately for dependence on Chinese supply chains and inflated equities. the Musk brothers and Tesla are entirely dependent on Chinese supply chains. And so Kimball Musk replied to J.D. Vance saying, Republicans for higher prices. How about that? This Trump tariff tax has driven prices for everyday goods through the roof. J.D. Vance, I read your book. It's good. I'd think you'd have more sympathy for your community's cost of living. Inflation sucks for everyone, but it especially hits our underserved communities the most. And
okay, so there's a guy with a cowboy hat. It's a party in Tamara Guy Two Faces pants today. Because, you know, Trump inevitably, the dunce Trump, doing stupid shit and not thinking it through. And he gets to say Trump's name over and over again, but he also gets to, you know, relish this feud now between Trump and Musk and these other dopes. So there's the Pammer guy. All right, so then there's this panel here. I haven't watched this yet.
One of the things that's happened is that the United States has lost, like, is it $1 trillion or $11 trillion since this all began? Maybe regained a little bit of it, but has lost all of that, and not a single trade deal has been struck. Not
no,
one.
and the reason why they haven't been struck is because lowering the headline tariff number is the easy bit. The 90 days is now going to be dealing really with the non-tariff barriers, the rules on procurement, who can own what this and that and the other. It's difficult stuff. It's very, very difficult. But I have a question, and I'd like to address it to my dear and good friend, Mr. Jennings. This is it. Today, the president gave a 90-day moratorium. Why did he not last week, when he did his show and tell with his list, say then, this is going to be the tariffs in 90 days. Now send your best people to Washington to negotiate with me over the next 90 days. Instead, he took us over the cliff and has now pulled us back up again, and he's left chaos in his wake.
It is a great question.
I think
Year of the chaos.
I think the answer that you would get from the administration is doing it this way gave him maximum leverage. It showed people that he was serious, and it showed people that this isn't for show, that if you don't deal with this...
Well, it is. It's totally for show. It's totally for show because I just showed everybody that they aren't ready to do this, to enforce it. And so this was never something he was going to do. And him coming out and saying, if you impose higher tariffs on us, then I'll go back and double it. And China was the only country that did that, at least according to Trump. And so he went after China, and now they've got a trade war because China blinked, or went after him, didn't blink. And the rest of the countries waited for him to do what they knew he was going to do in the first place, because America wasn't ready to impose these tariffs. So Trump just did it impulsively, like an idiot. Like, Trump doesn't think about how things are going to look in terms of, he's really big in intention and not failing. But he's also really big in, into bravado and things like that. But he's not great on, consequences. And when he doesn't, take responsibility for his actions. And so he can just bullshit his way out and pretend something didn't happen when it did. But again, this was like a silly fucking thing to do when he couldn't really implement the tariffs in the first fucking place, right?
We are willing to act here. But I think the answer is leverage, simply leverage, and now he's going to be able to deal with all these other countries.
He's got no leverage because he's lost so much credibility in America. Like, he's weakened his position on everything. Like, it's just like, the worst possible thing he could do.
Continue to isolate the bad actor, which is China.
People that he's serious. I think he's shown people that he's crazy, he's mercurial. Honestly, if it was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look.
We'd have to get elected to be.
But, well, yes, and if she had been elected, and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China. So I think this is a move.
Just, there's no victory lap you could take here, bro. Trump has just displayed his imbecilic. His inability to fucking understand reality, right? Like, it's just a goofy thing that he did. And it's still going to have effects on people. And, the economy has been fucking taken down by this. And who's to say? Because the economy is 100% perception. And Trump doesn't understand that or know that. If people don't believe in the economy, it implodes because it's not a real thing, because it's based in debt. It's based in monopoly money. The money has no value. It's so as soon as we realize it doesn't have value, most of us most of you guys listening to this know this, right? That it's monopoly money. We only pretend it has value. Like Jerry Seinfeld even said it in Comedians in Cars Having Coffee or whatever that fucking show was. He was talking to some random comedian saying, yeah, it's just, monopoly money. Like, people know this. Like, it's known. Some people know it and some people don't. The people who know it realize that as soon as people, realize it's not worth anything, it's just something that's agreed upon value. Like diamonds and gold and shit. Does it have real value, right? Well, they look shiny. They're nice. Gold is used in different things. Diamond is used in different things as well, drilling and stuff like that. But in terms of it being just for decorations on people's bodies, right? Like things are, arbitrarily, one of my best friends from high school, after high school, he moved to Atlanta from Connecticut. And I moved down there for a while. And his girlfriend had this Fendi purse. Fendi was some designer purse, and she paid $400 for it. And I looked at the thing, and I'm like, is that plastic? And she's like, yeah. And I touched it. It's plastic. And I'm like, it was just a plastic purse. And so, you have high-end shit that they put out, and they roll it out with fashion industry, and it's, probably takes, I bet it was worth $10. I bet back then even maybe cheaper. It probably took $5 to make, and the prices for this perception that it's fashionable. And she was conning people. They worked together at Holiday Health Fitness, whatever it is, Bally's, whatever they call it, signing people up to, fraudulent memberships that the people weren't going to. My friend said, and my sister had worked at the same place, and it's a sales job, right? It's not a fitness job. And he said that if everybody showed up, they would have to close down the place. So they would sign people up to memberships that they would never use. If people showed up, the place would be too crowded to run, right? So they wanted people not to show up. And he would go lift weights with people and then get them to sign up to a higher membership. Like he would spot them and, they make friends with them and then say, oh, you're not getting the best deal out of your membership. And he would upgrade them. He'd go on his day off and lift with people there, work out with them. And she would go into, when she was talking to some guy in the office about signing up, some guy was like, well, I got to talk to my wife. And she would look underneath the desk. And this was something that she did at least once. And she looked under her desk and he says, what are you looking for? And she goes, your balls. And the guy's like, oh, okay, you're right. Like that shit, right? And so, but then they'd spend this money on stupid shit like Fendi purses. It's all perception. It's all, all these things have value based in, some things have tangible value. Foods, commodities, right? Cars and things like this. But, they inflate the price based on demand, based on perception, the type of car it is. High-end cars, low-end cars. High-end cars aren't that much better, that they're like $100,000 compared to $40,000, right? And so, electric cars cost a little bit more now because of the cost of making them and the materials and all the rest of it. But, these things are just, there's commodities, there's things that are tangible things, and then there's just things that are, imaginary, that are, they just say, all right, we're gonna assign a high value to this, that more than it's worth. And currency is at the base of this, and it's worth nothing, right? Like currency doesn't have any real value other than the value we put on it. And so when you have that kind of economy, you can't fuck around with it. Because if people lose perception and the idea that America is the best or the greatest, these things, you take that out of the equation, and then people start losing faith and start pulling their money out of the fucking banks, money that doesn't exist, right? And then the whole thing collapses.
Mood issue, right?
No, it's not a mood issue because his craziness and the way that he acts, and this is not in a vacuum because it's not just the tariffs. It's the first thing he did was attack Panama, Greenland, Denmark, Canada, allies. abandon Ukraine, cozy up to.
You know, for her to say that he's menopausal, you know, like, why do you have to bring it back to women? Like, you know, you talk about Trump sucking, but if this was a woman, you know, just why do you have to go there? Like, fucking, just go into your number one thing, and Trump sucks. Biden was somehow not senile and not fucking menopausal and not arbitrary because he was handled and he didn't do anything on his own. You know, they kept him on a fucking, almost like a literal leash and changing his fucking diapers when they needed to, right? Like, the whole thing's fucked. Just admit that Biden was no better than Trump. Trump is, you know, just goes outside the box. He does things that presidents don't do. And that's what you guys are upset about. He's not handled as well. He's not safe, right? Because he'll just do arbitrary things. And sometimes, you know, he'll just do batshit crazy shit, and nobody pulls him back from the brink of destruction.
To Russia, it's been one thing to and
it's
after another. But this is also very, very similar to what Doge has been doing, where they go in with a sledgehammer when everybody talks about needing a scalpel. With these tariffs, again, went in with a sledgehammer, caused fear, destruction, distrust, when it could have been done with a scalpel in a strategic way. That's just not the way he operates.
Even the administration was not on the same page. I mean, it was the narrative around these tariffs has changed so many times. First, it was, oh, it's punitive because of Mexico and Canada and fentanyl, which, by the way, a majority of the fentanyl crossing the border is from American citizens. Then it was, you know, we're going to level the playing field, and this is how we're going to pay for tax cuts. It does not show that he was serious. It shows that he was grossly unserious. And so yet again, on the heels of a signal group chat and now tariffs, we look like a national embarrassment.
Well, let me just play one thing. You know,
All right, so they're falling apart there.
Let me play one thing to Tiffany's point. I mean, Donald Trump and Scott Bessent have not been on the same page about this. Bessent has been trying to paint this as a pretty rosy.
Right, so I'll show you these things. We already saw the Donald Trump thing. We saw the Donald Trump thing, and then I'm going to show Scott Bessent in a moment here. I just want to add something about this dope. You know, for her to come out and say, well, if he was a woman, he'd be saying he's premenopausal. You know, like, fucking, you know, identity politics cost you the election, right? You know, whatever legitimacy to the election there was, it was identity politics and your inability to actually consider men as a voting bloc, right? Half the population. There was a great CNN report, which those words very seldom come out of my mouth, where this guy, Smear Kanish, or whatever it was, Velshi, whether it was one of those bald fucks, had this guy on who was, you know, talking about how men were being completely hammered and discriminated against, so much so that Kamala Harris had a list of people the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris served, and women was number one, and there were 16 other categories, and not one of them was men. Remember, they came up with those very lame videos, those advertisements where they had men who were supposed to be like manly men, but they were like models and actors and totally not men, right? And they were saying how Donald Trump wasn't a man and a man would vote for Kamala Harris. That was the whole, a real man would vote for Kamala Harris kind of ad, right? And so, you know, they played the identity politics and they decided to make men the villain. You know, they want to have a paradigm shift where you had the first woman president. And a woman who's going to be elected president isn't going to be talking about what a woman, how she's a woman over and over again and how there's a glass ceiling. They're not going to be bringing up that she's a woman because it's obvious she's a fucking woman, right? And so why bring it up and talk about it over and over again? And so playing identity politics has cost them everything. And that's why you have Trump. But on top of that, you know, he's about to start World War III and crash the economy. And your fucking take on it is, well, if a woman was going to do that, she'd be called premenopausal or penopausal. Like, who gives a shit? Like, you know, the guy that you guys said sucked is really sucking right now. And you're still doing that kind of bullshit, right? So this happened before.
You're not well acquainted with my next guest. Dave Portnoy is the founder and owner of Barstool Sports, a wildly successful media company with a particular appeal to young men, a demographic that helped Donald Trump win back the White House. Barstool Sports has nearly 50 million followers on TikTok, publishes some of the most popular podcasts in the country. Now, Portnoy's followers get a steady stream of sports content, financial advice, pizza reviews, and unfiltered and some say offensive conversations. In recent days, he has gone viral for comments about tariffs imposed by President Trump, whom Portnoy supports. Dave Portnoy joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. You have been openly questioning the president's tariff strategy. I want our viewers to see and hear what you said on Monday.
I went super viral when I said I lost $7 million. I'd kill to be back to losing $7 million. I haven't even looked. If I had to guess, I'm down in these last 3 days, probably close to 20. I don't know, like 10, 15% of my net worth, poof. But I'm still here. That's the game. That's what I'm in. Like, do I like it? No. Am I crying? Am I like, oh, woe is me. I wish I voted for Kamala. No. Do I wish this didn't go down like this? Yes.
Now, you obviously voted for President Trump. You also said that you think he's a smart guy. You are willing to give him a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. Where are you now?
So it's uncomfortable. Anytime a stock market is like this and you're invested in it, it's certainly uncomfortable. But I stand with it. He ran on tariffs. He said he was a tariff fan. And I don't pretend to be an economist. I don't think I realized that we'd have this market crash. I don't think most people did. But
yeah, of course you did, because your dumbass is like Trump is. Like, the thing is, you don't know anything about our society, our system. And, I don't know that much about the economy or any of these things. But I know that it's fragile because of what I just said about a debt-based economy being about perception. Things that are real. Okay, so let's say you have a perception-based relationship where it's just something like a Facebook relationship where the relationship sucks. You and your wife hate each other. It's like a false marriage. Both people have different lovers, different homes, like Will Smith, for example, right? Where there's both of them are rumored to be gay or at least bisexual. They both have taken on, lovers and things like this and don't like each other. Like she doesn't like him, like Will Smith. But it's a perception-based relationship, and they won't get divorced because of a variety of different reasons. But she hates him. They don't get along. She's unhappy, and they hid this for years. There were rumors and things. It couldn't take the scrutiny of it coming out that she had an affair, and then the slap of Chris Rock, and which I thought was fake and staged and all that shit, right? But a perception-based relationship, something where a couple pretends to be a perfect couple on Facebook, but deep down they're a shitty relationship. So it's, as long as people perceive it, then you'll fake it. Like you're faking it for other people. What happens behind closed doors is your real relationship. And so when the perception goes, then there's no reason for the relationship. Once people realize it's fake and they don't buy into it anymore, Netflix had a kind of a murder series, a show about Nicole Kidman was in it called The Perfect Couple. And they weren't the perfect couple. This woman was writing this book, these books based in their marriage or whatever. And the guy was, he was cheating on her. They didn't like each other. They had, a shitty relationship. But they were keeping it together because of this. She was making a lot of money from these books and their businesses and things based in this idea that she was some kind of like, like a Martha Stewart. And so something that's based in perception is easy. You got to not tamper with that. Like it's very fragile because it's not real. It's what other people think it is. What you've created an illusion about it, and that's our economy. You can't fuck around with perception because it's once you pull the curtain back, you're fucked, right? Like then everyone sees it's not what you think it was, and then people lose faith in it and in you.
I think he believes in what he's doing and trying to basically strong-arm China and get better deals for the U.S. I'm willing to still give him time. I think the big date is the midterms, which is a long time out. But I do think that in this country, the number one issue
no matter what is going on, is the economy. And if the stock market doesn't show some signs of rebound or rebounding by then, I think people will speak with their vote. So, but I'm
It's not even that. It's grocery prices.
still, he was pretty straightforward that I'm tariffs. I don't like China. I'm going to do all this stuff. He's doing what he ran on. So to turn around just because we've had 3 or 4 bad days in the stock market.
Okay, so this guy's fucking a total tool. I knew he was before. What you should be saying is Trump doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, he believed in tariffs. He said, I believe he believes in what he's doing. And, you know, none of these things, let's say he's able to get better deals. It's not going to show up in the grocery store, and it isn't going to do anything to alleviate American suffering economically. But let's say it did. Let's say there were some benefits to it. The world is like putting America on notice. This is your fucking guy. Like, he's just acted, out of pocket here. Like, he's doing something that that isn't, it just shouldn't be done. And, based in, like, this is what I liked about Trump in his first term. He would do shit that wasn't presidential. He would break the rules of etiquette, things like that, which is great. I love that shit. But this is, after he got exposed on the COVID thing and all the way he got worked on the election and Operation Warp Speed, like, it no longer is valid because he's doing real damage. And he's doing real damage to, the people that kind of matter more, who are, more awake and are, not a part of realize that the truthers and other people, right, that are, they have a different, higher level of consciousness. And then he's doing damage to his supporters and the people he's supposed to be fighting for. And, so it, got old. It was funny at first, but, him just doing stupid random shit that presidents don't do eventually was going to hurt, the system and the rest of it. I've talked about how the system should come down, that Trump is probably God's instrument, at least one of them, for taking the system down, a system that's demonic. So that's, I don't care about the system going down, that's God's work. But in terms of what Trump is, everyone should realize he's a fucking idiot. He's just an idiot. He doesn't know. He's not an expert. He doesn't have any real plan. And the things that he promised, he can't do. You got fucking grifted because you want to believe something exists that doesn't exist. And that is saving a system that shouldn't be saved, right? And all these boneheads, they'll never get to that place because they're too oblivious of their own, their own hypocrisy, their own illusion, their own bullshit, right? This guy's a professional bullshitter. And obviously the people watching him are dumb. Like, he's got dumb followers. And so, of course he's going to be for Trump, right? Because his dumb followers are. Okay, so let's get to this. This fucking cyborg motherfucker, man.
Oh, yeah, here comes the press secretary and the secretary of the Treasury.
The president's latest statement regarding his America First trade plan. As you all know, the president just put out a statement announcing an additional tariff on China. The tariff on China will now go up to 125% because China
So she's leading with that.
decided to retaliate against the United States. And as I said at the podium yesterday, when you punch at the United States of America, President Trump is going to punch back harder.
Okay, so that's silly. Trump's a pussy, right?
In that same vein, we have had more than 75 countries from around the world reach out to President Trump and his team here at the White House to negotiate better trade deals for the American worker. We have been overwhelmed with the amount of requests from countries around the world. I'll let the secretary speak to that. We will continue with the tailor-made negotiation.
Okay, nobody believes that shit because, they might be calling you up, but that doesn't mean that they're willing to work with you. Like, we don't know what's going on with these other countries. But we do know that they're, like, looking for a way to fucking disempower America. Take away America's power. Because whatever, damage that America could do, which would be catastrophic damage to the economy, they could tank the world's economy and send each country into, depression, repression, recession, these things. But, or worse, just out and out economic collapse. And some of these countries could just go fucking completely under, based in their fragile position. And so when somebody acts unstable and you're this dependent on them, you're going to want to take away their power. Like, that's already on play. Like, that's happening. That's probably why Trump's president in the first place and why they're allowing him to do all these things, right? Like I said that before. They want to disempower America. And so her to come up and be all peppy like this is some great thing that's happened, right?
Negotiations that I spoke about yesterday. In the meantime, there will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing, and
which goes against everything you've been saying, everyone else has been saying. Like,
tariff level will be brought down to a universal 10% tariff. The secretary here has been a huge part of the president's trade team, of course, and will continue to lead these negotiations moving forward to look out for the American worker, which is always President Trump's goal. So I'll kick it over to our great Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Good, thank you. And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate.
So this was never a negotiating strategy. Like you said, it wasn't. It was just tariffs that you were doing, but they knew it wasn't true because they didn't have a way to implement them. Like they knew this is arbitrary. They knew this was about negotiation. They knew this was about art of the deal because Trump is so transparent in what he does, right? Like, some of these things, maybe there'll be some levels of raising tariffs, but Trump came in with, just arbitrary math, like, voodoo math is that one dude called it. And so, they all knew this was negotiation. And they knew it was like, all right, like it becomes what do we have to do to make Trump look like he saves face here? What little things can we give you, little baubles, to make you look like Trump didn't do something just incredibly stupid? But that doesn't mean the economy is going to come back because people have lost faith in his ability to make decisions, lost faith in the American system. And because now he looks like a fucking moron, because he is a moron. And so any idea that he's some financial genius and whatever he gets out of these deals isn't going to be enough to bring the economy back, right? And, he just makes fucking bonehead decisions. And Wall Street was one of his handlers, and they fucked him, and he fucked them, right?
Negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment.
5 days?
What we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate, and you will be rewarded. So every country
that's a negotiation right there.
World who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Secretary, thank you for doing this. Let me ask you three quick things, if I could, just for the sake of clarity, because the markets are open and they're wondering. First of all, Mexico and China, are they part of this 10% universal? Mexico and Canada. Are they part of the 10%?
Yes.
Okay. Second, given then that you have the rest of the world essentially calling it, it's not China, is this now just all about China?
Well, it's about bad actors, and what we will see.
Like, just this guy's such a tool. He's so stiff and so whatever. Let's see if here we go.
To see what President.
Okay, so this is the part here.
Excuse me, Raquel, if I could just add to what the secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world
because you guys said the tariffs are permanent. Don't say that. Oh, you guys should have reported that these are fake. Imagine if all the reporters said, "Yeah, he's just doing this to negotiate with these countries." That would take away your leverage and negotiating tool. Now you're coming back in. You guys failed to see how brilliant Trump was, that he pretended he was going to do these tariffs, and then he pulled them back so he could negotiate better deals. Well, that's what you guys said. So you were lying to us, right? And she's just so fucking obnoxious.
Clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher. Elena, go ahead.
Okay. So stock markets were plunging while she was making this announcement, right? And so here's the thing. Like as we go down, the Dow's going to go down. And so here's the thing about that. First of all, to say you guys believed what we were saying and reported on it, you guys failed to see that we're bullshitters and liars and Trump's a fucking moron, right? And so, like, that's really bad. But what's worse about this thing is when you do something like this, let's say you're married to somebody and they do something that is so fucking concerning, right? Like, you know, you were going along, you've been together 2-3 years, something like that, and they do something, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this person's this weird. And not something like cheating or something like that, but something fucking that makes you believe that this person's highly unstable, right? I mean, you come home and they have a gun pointed to their head or something like fucking, you know, something crazy like this. You know, people all have had relationships with either significant others or friends. When they do something, you're like, holy shit, this person's crossed the road. Like I had a roommate who like got into like guns and like went to Israel to train with ex-Mossad. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I didn't know what Mossad was. But like he got this big frickin' dog. It was like a rescue dog. That was somebody else wanted to get rid of because it was a Rottweiler that lived in somebody's basement. And he wanted to have a security firm. And this dog was totally not tame. And he ended up dating a dog groomer and it bit her. She's like, you got to put it down because it had hip dysplasia. But this dog smelled bad and it had been totally unsocialized and would just bully its way through the house. You know, one of my friends came over, was a giant, you know, big weightlifter guy, and the dog mounted him. And the guy's like, Paul, get him off me. And I fucking, what do you mean me get off me? I fucking can't. I mean, you know, I was looking away and killed it. Like, the dog was like fucking a menace, right? Like, he totally needed to put down. Like, they destroyed it. Some people mistreated this dog, and but this person got into shit. And as soon as that happened, I'm looking for a way out of this situation. Like, I'm moving out of the place, right? Because he's lost it. And my friends and I are like, oh my God, guy's lost it, right? I tell stories about what's going on. And he was just getting into these weird fucking things he was doing, right? And so people show you a side that makes them unstable and unsafe, and you want to get out of that relationship as soon as possible. And in such a way where you might even be like, in some cases, scared of the person, right? Because you're like, you know, this person's fucking murderous or, you know, whatever. So you have to be delicate in how you get out of that relationship because the person's gone crazy. Like some girl, you're like, you know, you realize it's like you're dating some girl and you open a closet and she's got like a jar full of severed dicks, right? That she's collecting, right? It's like that. Like, you know, Trump is now a guy with a jar full of severed dicks or balls in his fucking closet. And every one of these countries, without provoking this crazy fuck, is going to try to, you know, undermine America and disempower America, which was already happening before Trump. Like Trump is already, you know, where Americans' lifestyle is going to be taken away, but Americans still have guns and still have nuclear weapons. So it's, you know, there's a delicate procedure here, right? Which the controllers have to, you know, a way to collapse this system and disempower it. And part of that is to you know, destroy the you know, make it divide and conquer. You know, this is what's happening. But the world is not, Trump has just disempowered America. Like Trump has just shown them that they need to take America down because this shit that he just pulled is just not okay, right? And so for her to come out and say, well, they're talking to us and not China, right? And she comes back and says something else. Not there, at the end, I think. Let's just go a little bit forward here.
Stock markets, but also in terms of policy. So will this move in your mind, do you anticipate that this is going to calm the markets down?
Well, I think what we've seen, I think the willingness by more than 75 countries to come and negotiate, I think now the market understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10% temporary floor, and I think the market my 35 years in the market, I always wanted certainty.
Okay, so that's not what's happened because people have lost faith in Trump. The market is going to do whatever it's going to do, but there's going to be, people are going to try to recover their investments, but people are looking for a way to protect themselves against Trump's arbitrary bullshit. And, when the bond market collapsed, let's go to the end of this thing here where the Barbie truther comes back in.
Taken decades to create. But I think having seen the maximum level that Donald Trump is willing to go to, President Trump has created this negotiating leverage.
Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me.
Negotiating leverage, but that's not what you said. You didn't say that. You said these were permanent. Of course, that was a bluff, but everyone knew you were fucking bluffing because this was not sustainable. And like I said, one way to know that is to find out that they've done nothing to create a way to enforce these tariffs, because there was going to have to be massive overhaul to the agencies in charge of that, and Trump wasn't doing anything to do that. Maybe he's even cut those agencies to some extent with the fucking Doge bullshit, right? And so you'd have to enforce it first. You'd have to build the enforcement. If you're going to make, like let's say when they made alcohol illegal, right, prohibition, they had to create, police forces to now deal with all the drunks out there, right, and all the moonshine and shit. And so that became a whole thing, right? The whole agency, firearms, tobacco, and alcohol.
The secretary is obviously a very busy man. As he has said, he's had more than 75 countries that the
75 countries? Is it 75? Wow, it's crazy.
trade team has to respond to. I'd just like to end with this. For decades, Republicans and Democrats have said that these unfair trade practices are ripping off the American people, are ripping off our country, but nobody has ever done anything to address it. We finally have a president here at the White House who is playing the long game, who is doing what is right for the American worker and our industries here at home, and he has put together a fantastic team in Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lustnick, the entire trade team who will be focusing on negotiating these good deals to put the American workers first, and we're going to get to work to do that. Thank you.
Okay, so that's complete horseshit, right? The guy's a moron. Like, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like he said himself, I have a good feeling about this. I think it's going to go well. He doesn't know. So this is something that's going to affect all of us. Like, usually I cover things that, people think is going to affect them, and maybe it will in some subtle way. But this is going to, there's going to be implications for this, right? And you're going to see them. And it's going to be whatever it is. And it's coming from a very stupid, impulsive, dopey motherfucker, right? One last thing here, and we'll wrap this up.
Now, longtime tech stocks analyst Dan Ives, as I promised, Peter Tuchman, one of the most
Look at these guys. Look at that incredible shirt and coat.
recognizable traders on Wall Street. And you're seeing his reaction today as the markets moved. I think that's a fair encapsulation of the moment.
You got him right there. His big ghoul hole sticking out.
And noted economic analyst Jim Bianco is also here with me. So, Dan, you call all of this an epic debacle, which is far from over.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone. I think if you actually think
this guy knows about debacles.
How this is playing out is, look, China continues to be front and center because the reality is when it comes to Apple, tech, food chain, most consumers, electronics, that's
Amazon.com.
I mean, that's coming to the shores. That's coming to the U.S. consumer. But ultimately, there's one thing, and there's one, ultimately financial instrument you can't bully. It's the bond market, as Jim knows well. And once that 10-year, 4.5, it became really shown this is a dark cloud that Trump couldn't talk his way out of. Need to back off the cliff. Definitely huge good news. What I say good news today. But to China, that's really going to be the issue front and center in terms of where this plays out.
We showed your reaction today, and here we are.
It was an odd day. Let's look back for a couple of days. We did see what I'm calling a little bit of a test run when they released that news 2 days ago about what Bill Ackman had said. That what is
the reaction from Wall Street is a lack of faith in Trump and his policies. Like, this is a dumbass thing, so there was panic. And Trump said, you guys shouldn't have panicked. Well, of course they were going to fucking panic, asshole. So Trump deals with Wall Street all the time. And Wall Street was his barometer for success during his first term. he talked about how Wall Street was booming under him because he deregulated everything. And so Wall Street liked that. And Wall Street is one of Trump's handlers. Banks, Wall Street, and Israel. Those are Trump's three big handlers. Those are the ones that control him. And he's still doing what Israel wants to do. But the banksters and the stock market are now like, Jesus Christ, Trump, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, they're coming out saying that in public. And so Wall Street was like, if he loses Wall Street, which he has, then what does he have, right? I mean, that's one of his fucking handlers. And so he didn't know what the fuck his policies or what he was going to do here and how it was going to affect people. He thought they were going to be like, oh my God, tariffs are great. Like, he's so fucking oblivious, right? And now they're all realizing, oh, this guy's fucking a loose cannon, worse than we thought. And he's a fucking moron. And he's, now we're fucked, right? And so there's a loss of faith and perception, which you really can't get back because, Trump already has the haters. Trump already has the people that are never going to agree with him on anything, right? And so, the success that he says he's going to have, I mean, hopefully there's going to be some boom on Wall Street and so, whatever for a brief period of time where people can sort of recover from, like a remission and then realize, all right, I got to prepare. But I don't think most people are just oblivious to the apocalypse anyway. And so whether it comes now or it comes a year or two from now, like the big start, where everyone kind of realizes, oh my God, we're fucked. But we're really at the cusp of that, right? Chaos, a year of chaos.
Is it going to take for people to start buying stocks again? We talked about it.
Right. Would there be a 90-day pause? White House called it fake news, but you had a temporary rally.
But you saw the market react, and that was the test, the test run for what happened today. Can you imagine if he had actually done that and the market did not react that way? So he needed to know that if he in fact did that the market would react the way it did. And it was with the ban. I mean, the rally that was trillions of dollars, right? Yep. We saw that there was the initial little note that Bassett had changed his decision to go meet with some Congress people and was called to the White House. The next thing you see is Trump on Truth Social announcing the 90-day pause in the exact same words that had happened 2 days ago, and the market's reaction.
What is she, a fucking giant? What is she, like 6'8"? Like, how small are they sitting on?
Was incredible. I mean, you're talking, 500 points in the S&P, never seen before. 2,000 points up. We closed up on the Dow. I mean, the amount of money that came into that market, it was a number of things. It was probably a major short cover. It was a lot of real buying, allocation of dollars into the marketplace.
So, but an incredibly unprecedented moment, Jim.
Like he's saying, they didn't know the 90-day pause would give the fucking. Would be like those electronic paddles on the stock market, because we're talking about trillions of dollars of wealth. I think it was like 11 or 20 trillion dollars of wealth disappeared in one day. Value, because it's just arbitrary. Like, you think your stocks are worth this much, and you're like, all right, my portfolio, like that guy, he lost $20 million. Portnoy. So in a few days he lost $20 million of value. And so that's in the stock market. Like, who gives a fuck about that? Like, most of us, right? But this is going to affect the whole economy, because when all this wealth disappears, these stocks of these companies, valuation of these companies, there's employees, there's a massive firing, there's the prices going up from all kinds of different reasons, including this, and so this could have been fucking a disaster, right? And they're like, all right, we got to get this to bounce back. So they did a 90-day pause, and they realized, okay, these tariffs are not going to be accepted by people on Wall Street. So we know we can't really fucking do this anymore. But he didn't know this was going to happen before it happened, that the stocks would plummet, and they wasn't sure if this 90-day pause would bring it back. And they didn't know. These guys, no one knew. Like, that's how the stock market is. No one knows what people are going to do, right? It takes a lot of individuals to say, all right, we're going to buy stocks again today, which made the market go up. But they don't know if people are going to do that, because it's a lack of faith and perception. And so now everyone's like, Jesus Christ, lock this motherfucker up, right? Like, don't let him fuck around again with our value, our trillions of dollars of our imaginary wealth.
That you say all of this, that is still unfolding, right? Still unfolding. But as you're watching That terrifying moment with what we saw in the bond market, it was terrifying. It was sort of at the precipice of, oh my, I don't know. You said it was a tell your grandchildren I was there moment. And I just want to play for you what Trump said today about the bond market.
The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
Queasy, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, it was that. We got to remember now, the foundation of our financial system is the cost of money. It's interest rates. I mean, some people think it's a boring investment, but it is a critically important thing. And when we saw that mass liquidation that was going on last night, everybody was selling everything they had. That meant the price of bonds were going down and interest rates were going up. If that had held for anything more than a few hours, we would have seen, much higher mortgage rates, much higher borrowing costs for companies. It would have really had a negative impact on the economy in ways that we couldn't fathom. But fortunately, we come into today and the bond market backed off a little bit, and then we got the reversal of the policy. But it was still, one of the craziest days I've ever seen. I don't want to say the craziest day because we had COVID 5 years ago, but it's definitely up there with COVID as far as what we saw.
And just the unprecedented nature, Dan, of where we are, all right? And we emphasize, okay, this happened today. It came from my heart this morning. Who knows? 10% tariffs are still out there, 125% on China. 125% on China. It's Tesla with its business there, Apple with 100 plus factories. You're talking to all these CEOs. Are we still in the great unknown? I mean, this China-U.S. situation is kind of undescribable in history.
We've taught it's a tariff Armageddon for U.S. tech, and that doesn't change. And Jim hit on it in terms of does this even push into more darker times, potential recession? But fundamentally, for Silicon Valley, for Apple, for others, this today, you ship an iPhone in, you're paying that price. Consumers are paying that price. So the reality is that this is a game of high stakes.
And just to be clear, 125% means something that cost $1,000 would cost $2,225, right? So in math, I mean,
exactly.
Dan had said an iPhone would probably be selling at about $3,500.
If you make them in the U.S., $3,500. So we should make them in New Jersey. If you like $3,500 iPhones, if you like them in China, $1,000.
Take a bunch of years to build a plant, and then pay $3,000.
And that's why the reality is for.
So this is what I was saying. It would cost so much more to build the iPhones here. It would cost $3,000 to build the iPhones here, and now it's $2,500. It'll be an extra. I mean, she's saying $1,000. It costs more than that new, and so, this is the kind of thing where people will be like, "Who fucked us, Trump?" Right? Like when they have to buy something like a new iPhone, and all the companies that supply these things, like, AT&T and Verizon, where they get these deals where you get a free phone with their plans, and they're going to have to, their rates are going to go up. Like everything's going to go up significantly because Trump's a fucking moron. And, and so this is like really bad. And like the idea that he could do this again is there for everybody.
For tech companies, they can't call Smith Semi-Fab Company in the Midwest because they don't exist.
And, Jim, I just want to I got my board out today, and I got my board out because, before all this happened, I wanted to make a point, and I know Jim and I talked through this earlier. Okay, Jim, you call it the conveyor belt. I call it the boomerang, and I think this is just so crucial for people to understand what's at stake now, like where we are tonight. Okay, so if I have a guy...
He's been busting out this whiteboard lately.
Named Joe D., he wants to buy an umbrella. He's got a big meeting. He wants to buy a big golf umbrella. He's a big guy. He buys his umbrella on Amazon. Goes to Amazon, he pays, I just looked it up, $21.98, okay? So he gets his umbrella, comes in a couple days. I mean, it's a big golf umbrella. Here is Joe, he is happy.
It's a nice umbrella.
It's a good umbrella. I mean, it's one of those big ones you can't blow away on the streets of New York. But then what does China do with the $21.98? I mean, it's dollars, it's not once. So that they do, right, Jim? They send it back. They send it back and they buy U.S. treasuries. And in fact, you were saying to me, if you take China and you add in Luxembourg and Belgium, other countries where China's been doing apparently a lot of buying through, the number one buyer outside the U.S. in the world of those treasuries is China. That's where we are, right? I mean, we can kill them. They can kill us.
Yes, they can. Although, it is kind of a mutually assured destruction type of thing. They don't hold a card over us that they could pull that would not affect them. And that whole conveyor belt works. So today, Amazon made an announcement that they're going to buy less inventory from China because of the tariffs. Okay, that's less money we send to China. That's less money that comes back and buys our bond market. So if that continues to over time because of these tariffs, that whole conveyor belt is going to start slowing down. We're going to get less stuff from them. We're going to send less money to them. They're going to have less money to recycle back into.
And everything's going to go up in price. When you go buy an umbrella now, you won't be able to get a cheap one from China, and so now you're going to pay $40 or something. And so like they're not really talking about the American consumers as much as because they're Wall Street rich fucks who are concerned about Wall Street people. But this is going to fuck the average American person with higher prices, which we've known since the beginning. Like Trump is a fucking moron, and this is just another way of defining it.
To the bond market. The hope of the administration is, well, we'd have less bonds to sell because we'd bring down the deficit, but that's not coming down this year. But the tariffs are here right now.
Right, and I will say, very quick final word to you, Dan. Another idea Jim was talking about earlier was, not saying this would happen today, but things could change. Amazon could say, hey, we'll let you pay here's the tariff price, here's the price in yuan. That's going to be a lot less. Things could start to shift in terms of just the power of the dollar.
It's coming in the coming days, weeks, to the U.S. consumer.
Yep.
Right. This is not just the stock market. We're talking about what's coming to the U.S. consumer.
You know what? Look, we saw today that apparently Apple had commissioned 4 major planes stuffed with billions of dollars of iPhones to be flown into the United States to arrive before the tariffs take effect. Can you imagine when the biggest company in the world actually, the effect it's going to have, as we talked about, on them with this going through to the point where they felt it was worthwhile to actually commission charter extra planes packed with iPhones to arrive here to save a few $1 billion. That should be like a flashing red light going, you know what, we don't even know how the ramifications of what this is going to happen.
See, they don't know what the ramifications are, because if they don't know, Trump doesn't know, because Trump doesn't give a shit. He gets bored, right? Like I said. And so this is like, Trump is a fucking moron, right? A complete dunce. And he's just doing stuntsy shit. He's going to run this country into the ground like he's run out of these companies. And all these Trumpers still fucking believe in him. Like, that's how fucked this country is right now. Anyways.
On Apple and all the other companies.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone. All right.
And so we begin and end there.
And
we begin.
Jim, talk.
There you go. As much as this stuff is not important, this next thing I'm going to say is fairly important to the context of the tariff thing, right? It's all kind of imaginary. We're living in a illusionary world that's collapsing, right? A video game, whatever. Like, I don't take any of this stuff really all that seriously, because when things actually make you suffer, then you have to adjust yourself to accept them and deal with them, and whatever we go through as things collapse and things go south, each person's going to have to deal with it on their own level, figure out how to make sense of it. But what I want to say here is that I know Trump's full of shit, because this trade deal, the tariffs deal, the deals he's trying to make here, they require not just one party, but a whole host of different leaders and the whole group together to give you the response that you want, right? They're their own sovereign countries who maybe have a bad attitude towards America. Maybe they hate America. They want to destroy America. They want to take over America's spot in the case of China. All these countries have their own, the people have their own opinion of America and Trump, and then the leaders do, and then the powers that be that are the shadow rulers above the governmental rulers of the country, the shadow government. When you put something out like this and you negotiate it, you have to understand what people are going to do on the other side. When you're negotiating, what is the other side going to do? And you have no idea. And it's so many different entities in different countries, and they're talking to each other and cutting side deals and making their own alliances. And the countries that America has allied with, you're calling fucking thieves and insulting. Trump does this stuff where he insults people. He gets into these debates. He makes up stuff. It's almost like he's in a rap battle, battle rap, where you can say anything you want about the other person. It's considered fair game. And afterwards, you're supposed to hug and say, good job, right? These rap, if you ever seen this battle rap. But Trump does these things and says these things, and then afterwards, he thinks the other people should just tell him, okay, it's over with. Trump said that played well before the election with Hillary Clinton when he was saying lock her up, but after the election, he didn't care. But people were fucking hurt by what he said. And Trump, who has got very sensitive skin and has these fucking late night Twitter battles and shit, you can't hear anything, any kind of criticism, because he's weak as fuck, right? But he expects other people just to get over anything he says, because he's fucking narcissist. But aside from these other countries and whatever they're going to do, there's the American stock market and the way the stock market reacts. And all these people didn't know if Trump repealed the tariffs. He did the 90-day grace period. He suspended them for 90 days. He didn't know the stock market was going to bounce back because none of those people knew, right? So he doesn't know what's going to happen. He's just doing things. He's throwing things out there and then wondering what's going to happen. And, World War III is at play here. And they were already talking about war with Iran. He was just talking about that the other day with fucking Netanyahu. He's talking about annexing Greenland. He's dissing Denmark. He's bullying the whole fucking world. He's acting like a fucking tyrant. Economic weapons of mass destruction. That's what these tariffs are. And so he's threatening these people and their citizens. And they might have to capitulate and give him something just to make a deal. But they're going to find another partner down the road. They're going to find some other way, right? And they're going to say, I guess America's not worth the trouble anymore. That's what I said, fuck America. That would be the next, people would be like, fuck America. No, fuck America, fuck Trump, fuck America. That's what we've entered into. You don't know how people are going to react, especially when you bully them and you do it in such a fucking heavy-handed way. I mean, it's hilarious because of just how obvious it is. He came out just a while ago. There's another press conference. He met with his cabinet. I didn't see if Elon Musk was there. And somebody asked him, first, I'm going to show you this tomorrow, but Marco Rubio does the Florida Gators. Florida Gators won the national men's basketball championship, and they have the gator chop where they use their arms to make it look like a gator closing its mouth and opening its mouth, whatever they call that fucking thing. And he does it. He's such a tool. I mean, they're so fucking embarrassing, right? And because he's from Florida, Marco Rubio. But Trump was asked, well, what happens after 90 days if they don't make a deal, the tariffs going in place? And he's like, I don't know, we'll see. Because he's just fucking playing it by ear. Like, he doesn't have a plan here. So if you think he's got a plan, he doesn't. And if you think he knows what he's doing, he doesn't, right? Like these people who are Trumpers, they voted for this stuff. The guy is a fucking tool. He's always been this way. And he has made major mistakes to which he ran companies into the ground. And he destroyed other businesses and other people financially because of some of his bullshit things that he's done. And so that's where we're at with it. I'll cover the next press conference. I mean, he's just such an idiot. He's talking about all kinds of things. He just lets the press ask him questions while he's meeting with his cabinet. And he does these official things now that he didn't do so much in his first term because his cabinet members were not all Trumpers. So he brings his cabinet members in, and they're all yes men. And they all kind of applaud and laugh and joke and back him. And it's like, it's embarrassing. Like, anybody with half a brain can see through it. And there's another point. I watched a little bit while I was eating lunch. And he was asked about the Ukraine and Russia, the Ukrainian and Russian war. And hopefully I'll show you this tomorrow and I'll say the same thing then. But, I'll just give you a preview. Like, I'll try to watch as much of it as I can. I don't know what point I was in it. I don't know how long the video is. But he's asked about the Ukrainian-Russian war. He goes, there's 2,500 people dying a day, young people. They're not Americans. And he keeps on saying that to us. Like, one, we don't care about other people dying, which some people don't, but that's fucked up to say. The other thing is we all know it's not Americans. We know it's a war between Russia and Ukraine. Like, what level of dummy is he talking to, right? Like, he's talking to really stupid people. They're not Americans. They're Russian and Ukrainian in a war between Russia and Ukraine. But they're still suffering, and we still, they're still dying, and there's still people. It's like fucked up. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.